has happened to our party? What has happened to the conservative movement?
The fact of the matter is Jeb has no foreign policy experience.
Senator Rubio, your 5 years as senator does not match up to my capabilities.
Today, once again, the people will pass ultimate judgment with their vote. The Nevada Caucus and the South Carolina primary.
I'm Chris Matthews in Las Vegas on a day of big stakes. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders here in Nevada. Donald Trump and his #1 challenger, Ted Cruz, in South Carolina. We're kicking off a big day of politics across 2 states with much at stake, as I said, for nearly every candidate in this race for president. Here in Vegas, it's big casino for national Democratic politics. If Bernie Sanders defeats Hillary Clinton here, he'll have scared her in Iowa, beaten her in New Hampshire, and here in Nevada. He will be seen as an all-out challenger for the Democratic nomination for president. Caucus doors close here in the next hour. The latest polls show an extremely tight race between Secretary Clinton and Secretary Sanders. The big question is, of course, can Clinton blunt Sanders' momentum right now after a big win in New Hampshire? He's got the mo, and we'll get an answer to that very soon. Meanwhile, Republicans are voting in South Carolina today, in a real primary down there. The latest polls there show Donald Trump ahead anywhere from, catch this, anywhere from 17 points to 3. So no one knows how close that one is. I've said for weeks, by the way, that things in South Carolina would get dirty, and they have. Yesterday, U.S. Congressman Mark Sanford, a Ted Cruz supporter, accused Donald Trump of being a 9/11 truther. That the New Yorker says President Bush himself was somehow behind 9/11. Well, that's an election eve dirty trick designed to benefit Cruz in a state, South Carolina, where last-minute sleaze has a solid track record. We've got reporters fanned out across both states with candidates and at polling places and caucus sites. As soon as we get results this afternoon, we'll bring them to you. With us throughout our coverage today is John Ralston, an expert on Nevada politics and the host of the Las Vegas-based Ralston Live, and lucky for us, an MSNBC political analyst. John, you're the homeboy here. Tell us, I'm sitting here talking to our reporters, and I'm trying to figure out if there's anything here that doesn't meet the eye. Is this simply a question of can Bernie Sanders continue his momentum from New Hampshire all the way through this week and overtake Hillary Clinton? If the trend continues, he wins. If she blunts that trend, it looks like she can hold him on. What do you see beyond that?
Yeah, I think that's the dynamic that's going on right now, Chris. But I think what we have to watch today is what's going on right where you're sitting in Las Vegas and how big a margin Hillary can win Las Vegas by. That's where the minority vote is. About almost half the vote in Congressional District 1, which is urban Las Vegas, is non-white. She had hoped to dominate there and then hold her own in the rural and northern parts of the state where Bernie Sanders is thought to be a little bit stronger. But so I have to tell you, I think that I think that, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm getting a lot of feedback in my ear here. I apologize. But up in the north, Hillary Clinton ignored that last time, you may remember, Chris, and that's how she lost a delegate fight to Barack Obama.
Okay, well, thank you. John Ralston will be with us throughout our coverage tonight. It's great to have him. He's an expert. MSNBC, Steve Kornacki's at 30 Rock right now with a look at the numbers here in Nevada. Steve, do what you always do magically with the numbers and tell us what we can't see here when we're looking at people.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at what's going to be happening this afternoon, because, again, this is one of these caucuses. It's like out in Iowa. If you're looking for the raw vote, just the number of people who show up today and vote for each candidate, we're not going to get that. All we're going to see today are what they call county delegates, the county delegates in each of these counties across Nevada. So what we have on the screen here, and John's alluding to this a minute ago, this is what the map looked like in Nevada, the county map, the last time they had caucuses, Obama, Clinton, 2008 on the Democratic side. Now, in terms of the county delegates, Clinton won 51% of them. In 2008, Barack Obama won 45% of them. And the key, John was just talking about this, right here around Las Vegas, Clark County. This is a big state geographically, but get this, about 70% of all the vote in Nevada today is going to come out of this one county, Las Vegas, basically. Las Vegas, Henderson, right around there. The other lion's share is going to come out of Washoe County. It's right up here. It's basically Reno. It's Sparks. About 15% 15% is going to come out of here, and there's another small population center around Elko. That's where the big vote is in the state. The rest of the state, very rural, very wide open. And as John said, back in 2008, down here, this is where Hillary Clinton got her vote. This is a heavy Latino vote here. Up in this part, this is where Barack Obama won by 10 points around Reno. And this was actually Elko. That was Barack Obama's best county in the state in 2008. The reason that Barack Obama was able to declare victory in this state in 2008 is they actually give out the national convention delegates by congressional district. Another wrinkle in all of this. So we got two things to watch for today as these results come in. One, how are those county delegates being allocated? Who's winning that battle? Hillary Clinton won it in 2008. Then, who's actually getting the national convention delegates? And that's where Barack Obama actually won by 1 in 2008.
But, Steve, who's going to get which of those counts is going to be the headline in the papers tomorrow and all next week? When you say who wins Nevada, how will it be the ones who gets the delegates in the first count today, or how it's recalculated later? Who wins tonight and over the weekend?
And this is the thing.
How do you decide that?
But 2008 is such a good example because if you remember how that day played out, for the afternoon that the vote was coming in 2008, the story and the headline was Hillary Clinton wins. She follows up the win on New Hampshire with a win in Nevada. Then they started doing the computations. These take a while, and these are estimates in terms of the national convention delegates. But it took about 8 hours in 2008 to run the numbers on the national convention delegates. And then the Obama campaign was able to say, well, look, we're playing a longer game here that has to do with national convention delegates. And because Hillary Clinton's support was so concentrated in this southern part of the state, we got one extra delegate. So the Obama campaign, by the day after, was probably winning the headline battle. But on the day of in 2008, Hillary Clinton did.
Well, we have something more to disaggregate later today and tomorrow, of course, according to that, Steve. Thank you so much. Let's bring in NBC's political director and the moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, can you explain for everybody watching how this all fits into the race for president? We've had Iowa, we've had New Hampshire, now we have this here in Nevada, and how does lead into the South Carolina Democratic primary next week in South Carolina, and then Super Tuesday a week later?
Well, look, to me, the game here for Sanders is what? To prove he can beat her. How do you prove you can beat her? By starting to win in more diverse states. It's one thing to win in Iowa, New Hampshire, it's another. So to me, this is why this is such an important day, more for Sanders than it is for Clinton in this respect. This is the easiest first shot he has over the next 10 days, the easiest first shot he has to win a diverse state. And the fact that it comes first is more of a benefit to him, right? Because he needs time and he needs momentum. A victory for him in a state that's 30 to 40% non-white in the electorate, which is what this will be, it's very winnable for him. The rules play to his strengths. Same-day voter registration. He brings out a lot of new people. That's why it's so important. If he comes up short, and even though you can sit there and say, well, this is a state she won, the problem for him if he comes up short is this, Chris. If you can't win a diverse state under the best of circumstances for your campaign, then where are you going to win? Then instead, this is going to be a really, really impressive campaign that gets 45% of the national delegates, is a player at the national convention, but doesn't get the nomination. That's why today matters so much to him. A win here, he gets to say, you know what, I can win in a diverse state. Give me more time. I can do it. He'll raise more money, and then suddenly the air of an inevitability with minority voters goes away with her. It starts to sort of leak out of the balloon.
Let's talk about the way that parties pick their candidates. If this were a nationwide caucus, you'd probably get a different result than a nationwide primary, because the passionate people, the ones who really, really want to vote. So Bernie, we don't know, feel the burn. It's all around you. To see it on the campuses and everywhere. People really excited about electing him. The people for Hillary may be more casual, more centrist in many cases. They may be used to voting for people they're used to and have gotten used to over time. You know, they like to know the candidate over many, many years in some cases. So here we have what is it, the fact that we're having a caucus state here do to help Bernie? It seems like it automatically helps Bernie.
Well, look, the caucus process in general always helps base candidates. It happens on the Republican side, too, right? The more conservative candidates. We're going to have the Minnesota caucuses on Super Tuesday. It's going to be one of the big delegate wins. Sanders and Cruz will likely be the strongest candidates there because, again, it's the same thing. The activists, they're more conservative, just like the right. The activists more liberal. So I'm a proponent that it goes. The reason you end up having a little bit of both, for what it's worth, in case people are wondering, is that primaries are very expensive to hold, and if the state doesn't pay for it, a state party has to figure out how to pay for it. It's a lot cheaper to put a caucus on than it is to put on a primary, and that's the bottom line. And if the state isn't going to fund a primary, then sometimes the state party has no choice, because it seems like to raise all of this money for a primary, to hold a primary when the state already has the infrastructure to do it, is what makes it, I think, so prohibitive for these states that don't get help from governments to put on primaries.
Okay, thank you so much, Chuck Todd. As always, with me now in Las Vegas are the two NBC correspondents covering the two Democratic campaigns, Kristen Welker, who covers the Clinton campaign, and Casey Hunt, who covers the Sanders campaign. You first. Well, are we right? There's a sense of momentum on the part of Bernie, and it's a question, can Hillary break it?
I do think there's a sense of momentum, and I think Chuck's right that there is a lot on the line for him tonight, in so much as it's the first chance he does have to prove he can win with minority voters. But if you listen to Sanders himself, and he'll talk about on the campaign trail whether or not he thinks he's going to win, he's gone as far as I've ever heard him go. Even the night before the New Hampshire primary, when they knew that they were going to win big, Bernie Sanders is using the same language now to talk about Nevada that he was using ahead of New Hampshire. So I think that tells you a little bit about where they feel they are. But there is this element of unpredictability. This state is so transient. The electorate changes from year to year. Obviously, the polling is really tough. So I think at this point, most people on the Sanders side would be more surprised if he lost, but it's still a possibility.
You and I know both big city politics, and I'm Philadelphia, and I'm just wondering if union voting is a little more like the old days of ward voting, where the ward leader, the miniman, really has an influence when he puts that ballot in your hand and says, vote for this guy or this woman. How much of that is a controlled vote among the unions along the strip here, the culinary workers and those union people?
The culinary workers didn't endorse this year, so I think that's significant. I don't think anyone's telling them how to vote. They've been very careful when you talk about the union leaders in terms of how they're talking to their constituents. But as you know, there's been a big push to try to get out the union workers. By the way, 55% of them, Chris, Latino. The body language on the Clinton campaign says everything, though. Secretary Clinton's added extra events. Former President Bill Clinton has added extra events.
Jim Clyburn.
Right, and they've been downplaying expectations since New Hampshire, since that big loss in New Hampshire, and Secretary Clinton leaving tonight at about 6 Eastern.
Let's talk about the Latino vote here, because it's a growing vote, obviously, in this country. It's growing out here. It was 15% last time, but we know it's going to be higher. We assume it will. What has Bernie done? He's a newcomer to this kind of electorate, this constituency. Right. How has he broken in and challenged Hillary?
Well, they feel as though he's done a better job breaking into Latino communities than he has with African Americans, and part of that is because so many of them are young people, especially Latinos, who actually are able to vote in the United States. If their parents can't vote because maybe they're not citizens, many of their children can and are, and they're very politically engaged because they care a lot about the future of their families. So they feel like he's resonating there. Now, they've run into some trouble because of his vote against that immigration bill under the Bush presidency. He didn't back that because of all of the reasons that, under normal circumstances, the AFL-CIO might oppose such a bill. The guest worker programs, all the reasons to oppose that from the left. So that's the tension with him, especially here when you're trying to appeal to the SEIU union voter is different than the AFL-CIO union voter.
And the Clintons have a long history with both the minority groups.
They do, and I think they're surprised by the fact that Senator Sanders is getting so much support amongst Latinos. But, Chris, that's why you're seeing this strong push among African Americans. I mean, Secretary Clinton was in Chicago earlier this week fundraising, but also reaching out to African American voters. And then she got that key endorsement yesterday, James Clyburn. Of course, that sends a strong message to African Americans in South Carolina, but also here in Nevada.
Chris, I think the big question, once we get past Nevada, if you think about the calendar, we go straight from South Carolina into, if that's a Saturday, on Tuesday, all of these other big states vote. So even if Clinton picks up some momentum in South Carolina, she has not very much time to capitalize on it. The question for Sanders is going to be, can he show he can win? I was talking to David Plouffe about this, who's been out here last night. He, of course, helped Obama win here or come out ahead in the delegate count in 2008. He's looking to see, can Sanders pull ahead in Texas? Can he do it in Georgia? Can he do it in these big southern primary states? And I think that that's where the Clinton people see her future.
And to where's Secretary Clinton going tonight? Texas.
Yeah, look, there's 11 states in one day. That's a hell of a lot of country to cover when you're a newcomer, whereas the Clintons have been around for a long time now. Anyway, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Casey. When our coverage continues from out here from Nevada, we're going to go to a caucus site to find out how the caucus are going to work this out. You should get it and see it in action. and talked to supporters of both the Clinton people and the Sanders people, including the actor, you won't believe this, the 90-year-old Dick Van Dyke, who a lot of us grew up with and lived with for so many years on the Dick Van Dyke Show. He's supporting Sanders. We want to know how he got the burn. Plus, the Republicans are heading to the polls in the South Carolina primary today. Can Donald Trump hold off Ted Cruz? Our live coverage from Nevada of the caucuses out here and South Carolina primary action continues live from Vegas. Today, at least, the day for politics out here. Welcome back, and we're looking right now at live pick. There he is, Secretary Clinton talking to vote. This is a last-minute effort. You really can see it from the Clinton point of view. They're political professionals, and they're trying to hang on to what they thought and believed to be their lead out here going into these caucuses. It's a tough challenge when you're facing all this talk about feeling the burn and everything, and she's out there talking to the voters, and this is when you see a candidate who knows it's going to be really, really close, because every person she shakes hands with, she thinks she can maybe pick up one vote at a time. You know, that's not a delegate at a time, but it's the start of one. And look at this she also wants to be on TV to show that she's there for everybody watching here now, to get a sense of how much she wants it. People want candidates who want the job and ask for the vote. They want to see you asking, because that's how democracy works. You ask and people say yes and trust you with the office. And these selfies and all this, it's amazing. But we're seeing real American democracy. This is it right now, the cutting edge. The caucus doors will be closed in a little over 40 minutes right now, so it's getting very close to who gets in the door. Let's go now to the city of Henderson, Nevada. It's about 12 miles south of here. I'm on the Las Vegas Strip right now. MSC's Chris Hayes is live at a caucus site inside a middle school. Take it away, my fellow named Chris. Go ahead.
Chris, yeah, we're here in Del Webb Middle School in Henderson, Nevada. It's a big suburb just outside Vegas. As you can see, this is a huge location here. They've got about 12 precincts that'll be caucusing. And keep in mind, this is the Iowa caucus model that was imported into the state of Nevada in 2008 under the auspices of Harry Reid. I have a voter who's here online right now. Sherry, how are you?
Good, how are you?
You told me that you were on your phone making up your mind as you walked in.
Yes, I was hiking through the desert from my house, looking up the issues. I think they're very close on the issues. I'm still almost undecided because I think they're both awesome. I think they would both be great. So it's a really tough call.
You know, it's interesting you say this, because sometimes I think when we cover the primary and you're dealing with folks who are diehard, right, you feel like there's all this acrimony between the two candidates, but you feel positively about both these people.
I think we would be lucky to get either one in office. I think my main concern is which one can actually get elected into office. So which one can actually go up against, say, like a Donald Trump in a debate and win. And I think I'm leaning toward Hillary because of that, because she's really proven she doesn't get flustered. She stands her ground.
Fascinating. So electability, who's going to be the strongest Democratic Party nominee? Now, you did not participate in the 2008 caucus, but you've caucused before.
I have once before. I'm sorry to say I haven't followed the issues and been as involved as I would like to be. I have small children.
Yeah.
But I think this is a really important election, and I think that we really need to make sure we get a Democrat in office.
All right, Sherry, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. So I think this is sort of an important window into the minds of Democratic primary voters, because I do think, obviously, as this contested primary has gotten more contested, gotten more intense, there's a sense that we think that these two camps are battling each other. But among a lot of Democratic primary voters, they feel pretty favorably about both candidates.
Yeah, Chris, and I think you've just displayed how difficult it is to poll a caucus. Here we have people walking into a caucus, which is a dynamic situation where people play to each other and try to get each other to go their way. How do you predict how they're going to vote when they haven't decided, even as they walk in the door?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, that was an old Mike Mansfield answer from the old days. Just 3 words, 4 words. Thank you, Chris Hayes. That was how you shorten an interview anyway. You ran out of questions on me. Anyway, MSNBC's Jacob Sabaroff is alive at a caucus location right here. I'm at New York, the big hotel and casino here. It's one of the big places here on the Strip. And he's right here. Jacob.
Hey, Chris. So, yeah, I'm upstairs outside where you are right now, inside the New York. And this is just, I mean, I saw it up close in Iowa, but this is an extraordinary piece of American democracy because this is what is called an at-large caucus. And the name of the game, and I'm not even making this up, is getting these folks out by 1:15, which is their lunch break. Most of these folks, come with me, most of these folks are workers at casinos within a 2.5-mile radius of where we are right now. So New York, Excalibur, MGM Grand, and all the other hotels around here. People are signing up and they're registering in this area right now. In 2008, they said 1,000 caucus goers came to this location. They don't expect that many this time, but if you come in here, I'll show you where they're all going to line up. This is the caucus room. Mind the carpet. Some may like it, others may not. And what's going to happen is, as you know, they're going to divide into their preference groups. Bernie Sanders over there, Hillary Clinton on this side. Another extraordinary piece of information here is if it ends up somehow in a tie, a statistical tie, and it'll come down to a percentage point, the way they're going to figure out who the winner is and gets the 34 precinct level delegates from this location is by pulling a card out of a stack of a deck of cards, and the high card is the winner, and that's where the delegate goes, Chris.
Well, Jacob, you know, again, back to the gambling reference, in blackjack, the customer, the bettor, is allowed to keep their cards down. But in Nevada, you got to show your cards. You got to walk in a room and walk to that location and tell everybody in the room, I'm for Hillary Clinton, I'm for Bernie Sanders. Wide open announcement to everybody you know. And everybody go home and talk about how everybody they knew voted.
That's part of the reason, Chris, why some say caucuses don't have as high a turnout as a primary system. Even with 118,000 people who showed up, all-time record in 2008, that's still like a 9% overall turnout of people that are eligible to vote in the general election. This is not a secret ballot, and that is a staple of American democracy. You look around here, people are actually allowed in the rules to wear T-shirts with the candidates they're supporting, and they're going to go to the side of the room that their candidate supports. You look at these guys right here. These are the precinct captains for Bernie Sanders, and it says it on their shirts, Chris. Nothing is a secret when you come to the caucus. And I mean, I'm sorry, the cliche is, let me just put it this way. Nothing's staying in Vegas this time around, man.
You know, I love the way you report. It's like Elliot Ness racing into a speakeasy, and you show everything that's going on at the time. I love it because nobody's ever done this before like you're doing it. Jacob, you're a pioneer, sir. Thank you, Jacob Sabaroff. We'll be right back when the caucus gets underway. I'm joined right now, by the way, in fact, by supporters of both the Sanders campaign and the Clinton campaigns. And you know this guy from his classic roles on the big screen as Bertie and Mary Poppins, his iconic 60s television show, The Dick Van Dyke Show, has a new role now as surrogate for Bernie Sanders. He joins us now. Dick Van Dyke, my God, I thought I would never meet you, sir. And also with me is David Huerta, a local California president of the Service Employees SEIU. Of course, we all know that union, which has endorsed Hillary Clinton. Let's start with Mr. Van Dyke. Mr. Van Dyke, what made you come out the other way, but come out so much for Bernie Sanders?
Well, I haven't campaigned since Eugene McCarthy, so you know how political I am. But I'm 90 years old, so I like to give a hand to young, aspiring politicians like Bernie. No, Bernie has lit a fire that's been lit a lot of times over the last 100 years, but always got sidelined or squelched. But somehow Bernie has caught the eye and the minds of young people. And I think this time it's going to happen. We've got to put him in the White House. It goes back to Woodrow Wilson, who said there was an invisible force over and above the United States government, the banks and the insurance companies, and it's been going on that long. Ike warned us, and even Jimmy Carter out of office warned us of what was happening. It's time for this to happen. And he's a New Deal Democrat. I was there back in the 30s and the 40s. Bernie is a New Deal Democrat.
So you don't think much of his self-description as a socialist, democratic socialist. That means to you just liberal Democrat.
But I don't think young people are bothered so much by that word, socialism.
Yeah, I agree.
It used to be classed along with communist and Nazi and fascist, but socialism has a whole different connotation now, thanks to countries like Sweden.
Yeah. Well, I was with you on McCarthy. I have to tell you that. I can say that. I love G. McCarthy. And by the way, he was the only one with guts to get out there and do it, as you recall and I recall. By the way, Dick Van Dyke, we're all huge fans, so I need not get into that. And by the way, I wish you'd sing something for Mary Poppins, but I don't know if you still want to do it. Do you want to do that? It's a jolly holiday.
What would you want to hear, Jolly Holiday? Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's a jolly holiday. Oh, no, wait. Ain't it a beautiful day? Bright as a morning in May. I feel like I could fly. Have you ever seen the sun so green or a bluebird sky? How about my Cockney accent, huh? Better?
I love it. Hey, Bert, you were the best Bert ever. Let me go back to a guy that now has dementia, Mr. Huerta, David. SEIU, the unions, what role will they play out here?
Oh, we're playing a big role now. We have hundreds of our SEIU rank and file members who are out there right now hitting the streets or have been knocking on doors for several weeks now, not just within Nevada, but members from California and other states who have been hitting the streets and knocking on doors and getting that conversation, that one-on-one conversation with working families to come behind Hillary Clinton. So we're really excited, and we hopefully anticipated victory.
So tell me, we're explaining the caucus system. How does the international, like the SEIU or here locally, how do you decide how to pick a candidate? How's it done?
Well, you know, we had a very robust process in SEIU. You know, we're one of the largest unions throughout the country, and we started with early last year by really putting out the platforms for our families. You know, the working families, of saying what is the platform for working families in the United States. We had a large worker convention that came about and weighed in on that. We did polling, we did surveying, we did teleconference town halls. Yeah. Over 80,000 members participated in that, both Spanish and English. Absolutely. In my local, 9-1, our executive board, which is all rank and file, voted in favor of Hillary Clinton to be for the endorsement, and we passed that on up to our president, and it's really been rank and file driven in the sense of getting that endorsement for Hillary Clinton.
Are there many members of the SEIU or for Bernie?
Well, you know, we respect the opinion of all our members, but 70% of our members across the country within SEIU, the 2 million strong, are supporting Hillary Clinton. So, you know, we got to respect the majority.
Okay, great. Thank you, Warren. David Huerta, the SEIU, a very powerful, important union out here and across the country. Dick Van Dyke, I never thought I'd get to meet you, but I have, and it was great to have you on, especially that since you entertained us as well as informed us, both in one day. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to check in on the big race on the other side of the country, the South Carolina Republican primary. It's a real primary out there where everybody gets to vote the Democratic side. Actually, in this time, the Republicans, Democrats next week. When Donald Trump is looking for a big win tonight, who knows? He's up by 3 or 17. You pick it. Our coverage continues from Las Vegas after this. Well, that's Jeb Bush this morning in Greenville, South Carolina. Voting now is underway in South Carolina in the Republican primary out there. We're out here in Las Vegas, and polls close there at 7 Eastern tonight. We're following that race as well as the one here in Nevada. And for what's going on outside or inside those campaigns this hour, we bring in Katie Turr, who's with the Trump campaign out there in South Carolina. Hallie Jackson's following Cruz, and Gabe Gutierrez is with Marco Rubio. So let me go with Katie right now with this strange charge that hit the airways last night. There's some other stuff going over the robocalls. Give us the latest on the dirt from South Carolina, Katie.
I hope you could have seen the Donald Trump advance team behind me just a second ago making faces. They're now making faces at me over here. So that's what's going on currently with the Trump campaign. But let's talk a little bit about last night and that rally he had in North Charleston. He's getting a lot of headlines right now for a reference to a General Pershing story that has long been discredited on the internet, an internet hoax essentially. Take a listen to what Donald Trump was trying to say and the point he was trying to make by using this story. Take a listen.
He caught 50 terrorists who did tremendous damage and killed many people. And he took the 50 terrorists, and he took 50 men, and he dipped 50 bullets in pig's blood. You heard that, right? He took 50 bullets, and he dipped them in pig's blood. And he had his men load his rifles, and he lined up the 50 people, and they shot 49 of those people.
So they shot 49 of those people, he said, and then that one person went back to tell his friends, the other quote-unquote terrorists, and nothing happened for 25 years. That was the point that Donald Trump was trying to make, that the U.S. used to be tough, and they are no longer tough. The crowd in that room enjoyed that story. They cheered at that story. This is on top of Donald Trump talking about torture, bringing back waterboarding, saying it's not even tough enough. He says over and over again that this country needs to get tougher when it comes to terror, tougher when it comes to our relations overseas. And right now, what you're hearing overseas from a lot of foreign powers are people who are genuinely scared of what a Donald Trump presidency could look like. So that is just the latest headline coming out of the Donald Trump campaign. Chris.
Thank you, Hallie Jackson. Tell us what's going on with Cruz' campaign down there with the latest robocalls.
Absolutely, and these calls coming from a super PAC that are trying to hit Donald Trump on a couple of different topics. One, his position on the Confederate flag. Two, his position on gay and lesbian rights. This is coming from a PAC that supports Cruz. It is hoping to try to change the momentum for Cruz here and make sure that he ends up in second place, even though he's in a pretty tough fight with Marco Rubio, potentially for that position. We're actually at a polling place here in Columbia. You can see it behind me. We've been talking with voters who have been coming in here. I want you to listen to what one had to say when we asked about their last-minute decision that they were making. Listen.
I knew who I was not going to vote for, but kind of up until the end, it was just between a few candidates, and I feel like Marco Rubio hasn't been angry in his approach with the other candidates, and that was really appealing to me in the end.
So Fran Sullivan there, a Rubio supporter, but we've seen supporters of every candidate here, and it's sort of hit or miss, Chris, when you look. This is where they come, they sign up here, and this sign is actually a pretty good example of what's at stake in this South Carolina primary. You can see the other candidates have been crossed off, right? So by tomorrow, it looks like we will see probably more names crossed off that list, potentially. Jeb Bush insists it won't be him. He told reporters this morning that he plans to continue on to Nevada tomorrow. That's what his travel schedule is, and that's what he wants to do. John Kasich isn't even here, as you know. He's up in New England. His top strategist said this morning that this potentially is the last day for Jeb Bush's campaign. You've got Ted Cruz looking to show that he can be viable when he moves on into the SEC primary states. An aide telling me just a couple of minutes ago that they feel good about where they are in those states with thousands of volunteers, 27,000 in Texas. They've got some 7,000 in Tennessee and Oklahoma. So they feel like their organization is strong. And then Dr. Ben Carson's campaign hoping for a surprise, Chris, but we'll see.
I'm going to ask you about this this charge from Sanford down there that that Donald Trump has accused George W. Bush, the President of the United States, of being involved with the 9/11 horror. How does that set with people? How does that sit with them? Do they believe that Trump actually said that? They don't care. He was accused of saying it if he didn't. How do they put it together in their minds when they go to vote? A charge like that.
We haven't heard much about it from voters, Chris. Yeah, you know, as we talk to people here, that is not something that anybody has brought up. And frankly, you talk about all these endorsements that these candidates are getting. Mark Sanford for Ted Cruz. You've got Nikki Haley, obviously, out from Marco Rubio. That's not something that you necessarily hear from people when you ask them, hey, why are you pressing that button in that polling booth for Marco Rubio, for Ted Cruz, or for Donald Trump? What we've heard a lot about, frankly, are not these attacks that have been all over the airwaves in South Carolina. You're hearing about personality, a little bit of policy. One Trump supporter said he really liked his position on immigration, but a lot of it is, hey, I like this guy or I don't like this guy.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Hallie, as always. Let me go to Gabe Gutierrez right now and how this Rubio thing's done. What is Marco Rubio, I don't want to use it surreptitiously, but what's he up to? Is he aiming to get in third, possibly go to second? What is he hoping to do here today in South Carolina?
Well, hey there, Chris. Well, his campaign, as you know, they are very hesitant to get into the expectations game. But the expectation is that Marco Rubio really has to finish at least in third place here, possibly even second. But the campaign is basically arguing that, look, once the Republican field winnows down, he's going to be able to coalesce his support. They are trying to ride this momentum, as Hallie mentioned, after that Nikki Haley endorsement. They got Tim Scott with him on the trail, and they're trying to make the argument that this is the new face of conservatism. But but many of his rival campaigns are criticizing him and saying, look, he hasn't won any primary. He finished third in Iowa, fifth in New Hampshire, and even if he finishes third here in South Carolina, that doesn't really say a whole lot. So the Rubio campaign looking to finish strong here. The conventional wisdom is they really need to finish at least in the top three. The Rubio campaign says if they do that, then they can make a case for then they can take on Ted Cruz and Donald Trump as this race moves forward. Chris?
Well, I got to tell you, just in terms of cosmetics, him standing there with the governor down there in South Carolina is an attractive look of youth and positive future. It looks very good. I don't know where they cooked that scene up, but that was a great press avail they had for both of those people. Anyway, thank you, Gabe Gutierrez. The race in South Carolina took a decidedly dirty turn yesterday, as I just mentioned. U.S. Congressman Mark Sanford, a supporter of Ted Cruz, made a wild and untrue accusation about Donald Trump in his statement. He said, quote, "I like what Mr. Trump is getting at. I have just come to believe passionately that the way he is doing so is both dangerous and destructive. To suggest that former President Bush was a conspirator in the 9/11 attacks is to flame all the conspiracy theories that undermine the very trust essential to representative government." Now, that's in a statement put out by Sanford. He repeated the claim again today on MSNBC.
I say dangerous because I think ultimately you cannot play to people's worst fears. When you talk about Bush being a co-conspirator in 9/11, that's crazy talk.
Well, look, I think it's outrageous to say that anybody has accused George W. Bush of blowing up the World Trade Centers. And if that's what he's implying by suggesting a role in 9/11, it's awful. Anyway, I'm joined right now by whatever you think about Trump. Anyway, but I'm joined right now by Robert Costa, national political reporter for The Washington Post and an MSNBC political analyst, and Kathleen Parker, a syndicated columnist and MSNBC political analyst. Kathleen, what is it in South Carolina where they don't just retch at politicians and teams that put out garbage like that? Sanford, are you that desperate to get in with Cruz? Did you put something like that out? Why do they have these robocalls about LGBT? What is the story down there?
Well, you know, years ago, I said to one of the Republican Party leaders, I said, you know, why do you all do these nasty things? It's just awful and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, you reporters always say that, but then we get a 3-4 point bounce. But let me say a thing or two about Mark Sanford. I think it's very clear what he's doing. First of all, he waited until the very last minute to endorse Ted Cruz, whom I have on very good authority he cannot stand. And he did this for two reasons. Well, wait, let me just back up. The other thing he did is this statement about George W. Bush. Okay, what he's doing there is playing up his alliance with George W. Bush, who has an 85% approval rating. So basically, what he's doing is protecting Mark Sanford. He's going to always have problems because of his history in getting elected. But this way, he's indicating clearly to the voters who matter to him that he is a super conservative. So this is totally all about Mark Sanford and not about Donald Trump or Ted Cruz.
And the voters respond to this stuff. Yeah, well, it does in a way because it explains self-interest, which often explains everything, Kathleen. But I was going to ask you about the larger question. Do the voters really believe that Donald Trump, as wild as he can be, has accused the former president of having a hand in blowing up the World Trade Center and the Pentagon? Do they really believe Trump said that?
No, they know that he didn't say that because they could hear what he did say, and it's been clarified a few times. But, you know, people don't really care that much what endorsers have to say about the candidates. They know what they know, and I think there's also there is a movement within the Republican Party to try to get anybody elected but Trump, as you know. And so what you've got to do, I mean, who is there other than Trump? I mean, who can unseat him in the first place? And that seems to be Ted Cruz. So even though it doesn't make them happy, people like Governor Perry of Texas said, you know, he endorsed Ted Cruz and he gave all the reasons that he wants the public to believe. But the real reason is because he feels that he's the only person who can defeat Trump, and that's what has to happen.
Robert Costa, tell me what you think is all going on down there in South Carolina.
Great to be with you, Chris.
I was at the Trump event last night, talked to the Trump campaign. You get a sense that they're confident in South Carolina. This is going to give them a boost going into the Nevada caucuses, going into Super Tuesday on March 1st. The real race is for second place between Rubio and Cruz. The Rubio people have the establishment behind them in South Carolina. The open question, though, is does Cruz GOTV efforts and his analytics, do those really eclipse what Rubio's doing with the establishment networks of Tim Scott and Governor Nikki Haley and others? And the third place finish is really another sub-competition. Governor Bush is trying to stay in this race, trying to stay upbeat. This is an important stand for him. And Governor Case is attracting some 11th-hour converts who like his optimistic message, and he's trying to stay in through mid-March as well.
Okay, Robert Costa, Kathleen Park. Go ahead, Kathleen.
I was just going to say one thing that I'm hearing that Jeb Bush is going to hang in there until Florida.
Okay, he's not going to quit even if he does bad tonight. Anyway, thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Robert.
Thanks.
The polls in South Carolina close at 7 Eastern. At 7 Eastern, and right now we're under 20 minutes away from doors closing here at the caucus sites of the Democratic caucus out here in Nevada. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at the crucial Latino vote here in Nevada. We're just minutes away right now from the doors closing out here at the Democratic caucuses in Nevada. We're here, by the way, I have to keep telling people, we're actually here on the Las Vegas Strip, and it is beautiful weather out here. For more on the critical Latino vote here in Nevada, we go now to MSNBC's Steve Kornacki in New York. Steve, I was looking at the numbers in 2008, the last time we had a really hot contested race, in that case between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, about 15% were Latino. What do you expect on that front?
Yeah, so that's the thing. And again, you can look at, we can put on the screen here what the results looked like in 2008. Again, Hillary Clinton, 51% statewide. The Latino vote, when you're talking about where it's really a factor here in Nevada, you look right around Las Vegas, also to a lesser extent up here, Washoe County. So take a look now at this. You mentioned these census numbers. 15%, that was the figure in the 2008 caucuses. 15% of the participants said they were Latino or Hispanic. However, the most recent census numbers for Nevada show the actual number of just people in the state. The number of Latinos in the state is higher than that. Part of that's because these numbers are changing every year. The state is becoming more diverse every year. So that 15% could be higher today. We'll look to see if that is true when we get some entrance poll data. But also, this is the key. The bottom line in 2008 is that Hillary Clinton ran up very big numbers over Barack Obama with Latino voters. She beat him more than 2-1, a 38-point margin, which was the key to winning statewide for her 8 years ago.
So what could change? I mean, could change feeling the burn like in every other community? Is there any way to rate? We'll get to our questions on that. Steve, that's great stuff. Let me go right now. We're joined right now by Luciana Lopez of Reuters, MSNBC's Alex Seitz-Wald, and Robert Lang of Brookings Mountain West. I want to start with Luciana about this vote. What can you report now as we get into the voting, as they're in there now in the caucuses? How can we anticipate the participation level? Is it beyond 15%? Do we know for sure?
One thing that's going to be tricky this year is the Culinary Workers Union did not endorse someone. They're not doing the kind of full-on mobilization that they would if they had a candidate to back. So they told me that they're more gently encouraging their members. So we could see that actually hit Latino participation a bit.
No actual union-backed polling operation. No polling. No bringing people in the cars or going around making sure they're there. None of that.
No, it's going to be a lot more low-key. They're really focused on contract negotiations. That's what they told me. They want to get their workers a fair contract, and they can't really afford the divisiveness that might come with endorsing someone right now and annoying their members who don't back that candidate.
Doug, have you any reading on, let me go to you on this. I'll get back to you on this. Let me ask you about the ideology. You know, I mean, these are all generalities, but they're pretty important. Cultural issues, abortion, same-sex, Latino communities as conservative as anybody in this country, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to economic issues, maybe they're more liberal. How does it cut?
There's mixed opinion on that, actually, because, despite the fact that there's a heavy Catholic population, some of the polling data shows that, on areas like abortion and so on, it's not in line with Southern evangelicals, let's say. So religiosity in the Latino community may not translate in the same way it does in the white community in the Southeast.
So what will people vote on mainly?
economic interest, and especially whether or not some candidate is saying build a wall and throw you out of the country in the general election. They don't have a whack at that yet.
Well, that raises the great old question, the old NDC question. November doesn't count. Are they thinking in terms of putting up the strong, like a woman here we had a few moments ago in the air? I want to vote for. She's a voter going into a caucus. I want to make sure we get the person who can beat those guys.
And let me tell you what my students are saying. So my students are just voter eligible. Many of them born in the U.S. UNLV, right? And it's a very diverse university, and I have a lot of Latino students around me and graduate students. They're saying that they're energizing their parents, that they're reaching out to their parents, and they're saying, join this caucus. A lot of the dreamers are mobilized. So a lot of the issues around immigration are mobilized young. And so if they bring their parents in, maybe they're also sort of feeling the burn.
Yeah, and if I could jump in here,
I want to get Doug in here first. Okay. Doug, what about the question, the old question you face in every time you vote in a primary or caucus? Do you vote strategically, thinking about the general, or do you vote your heart?
Well, Chris, I think it depends what phase of the caucus you're talking about. Early on in these states like Iowa, New Hampshire, and here in Nevada, I think people are really voting with their heart, with their passion. Later on, when you start to think, you get closer to November, and if Bernie Sanders really has a shot at winning the nomination, because I don't think a lot of people who are voting for him think he's actually going to get there necessarily, then you might be talking about more strategic voting interests and who you think is going to be best up against Republicans. But if you talk to the hardcore Sanders supporters, they think he is the guy who is best able to go up against Republicans. They point to, what they see as baggage for Hillary Clinton. They point to the enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders, and they say he's going to turn out a ton of people in November up and down the ballot, and that's how you win general elections these days in the post-Obama era.
I hear that argument, and I think that's the question. Are they more fearful of socialism or Hillary Clinton, or more angry at either one? You had a thought.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, just dovetailing on something you said, one thing to remember is a lot of Latino and Hispanic households are actually mixed status. So you might have someone in there who's undocumented. You might have someone who is documented. You might have someone who's in the process of getting a green card right now. And so those issues in Latino families, those are family issues. They're very personal. So I talked to one young woman at a Bernie Sanders office in East Las Vegas, and she was talking about feeling the burn. And then she spoke in Spanish, and she said, fuego en el estómago, fire in the belly. And part of it is because she's worried about her mom, who's here undocumented. This girl was born in Arizona. She's fine. Her sister's fine. It's her mom. For her, this is about mom.
Do they think Bernie's better at that?
Oh, yes.
At getting the immigration law changed?
Yes. Yeah. Fuego en el estómago. This is all about the fire, and that's what Bernie Sanders brings.
And one thing, Clinton has really hit Bernie Sanders on not, in backing Barack Obama and everything, but I think there's a lot of disillusionment in the Latino community with Barack Obama. He's deported more people than any president in history. So that actually kind of works in his favor, that he's calling for a revolution and change from Obama.
Yeah, it's hard to be in government. It's better to be a candidate sometimes. It's much better to be able to promise what you have to promise to win. Anyway, because there's no limits on what you can promise. Anyway, my panel, I want to thank them, Luciana, Alex, and Robert. We'll have more time later. We really appreciate this information. Anyway, caucus doors are about to close right now. It's almost 3 o'clock back east. It's about noon back here in Nevada. Let's check back with MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff, who's live at one caucus location right upstairs here in New York, New York. That's the name of a hotel and a casino, which is pretty good. Here they are up there somewhere.
Hey, hello from upstairs, Chris. So, Chris, this is Lucy. She is an ambassador at the Excalibur Hotel. If you win the jackpot, she comes and pays it out to you. Lucy, who are you caucusing for?
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton. And why Hillary?
Because I think that we need a woman. They have, I see, better feelings than I have feeling for her. So I want.
You feel for her. Okay. And how about you, artist? You said that you deal out cards.
Yeah. Well, I don't deal cards. I hand out the player's card that you can.
For Hillary, huh?
Yeah, I'm for Hillary, yes, because I think she's most qualified. I was for her in 2008, but I had to go with Obama.
And just real quick, Chris, I want to introduce you to this woman here who's actually undecided. You haven't made up your mind yet?
No.
And how come?
I'm not sure, 100% actually.
And so when are you going to decide?
Hopefully today.
So that's one thing you need to remember, Chris, is that there is an undecided preference group as well. And if they are not viable, then the other campaigns are going to come and pitch them, try to bring them over to their side.
Well, Jacob, I don't know how do you make these people play their hands faster? I mean, they're you want an extra card or you don't want another card. I mean, it looks like the dealer has to move a little faster out there. This is fascinating stuff. Again, are you sitting now in an undecided area? Or are you sitting at a Hillary area?
So this area over here, I mean, everybody's mixed up. Like, let me walk you over here again, Chris. So if you look at these people sitting on the floor, they're literally having a picnic for Hillary Clinton. I have not talked to them before. I'm just going to quickly slide in here. Hey, man, what's your name and where do you work?
My name is Paul Staslevich. I'm at the MGM Grand at the Skylofts.
And what do you do there?
I'm a concierge.
And what are you eating?
Ham sandwich.
That's delicious. See, these guys, Chris, have made up their mind. Concierge at the MGM Grand, eating a ham sandwich, ready to caucus for Hillary. Everybody's mixed up all throughout this place.
Great work, Jacob, as always. Thank you so much. That is fascinating to meet the people you meet out here all day and realize that they're also citizens who vote and have political instincts and political philosophies. And then the concierge that tells you how to get tickets. By the way, we got tickets last night to the Jersey Boys. We actually got a discount, I think, and it was fantastic. The four of us went from our show, from Hardball. Anyway, the doors are about to close at caucus sites right now statewide across Nevada. And when we come back, our first characterization, I love that word, of the race between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Our coverage continues. You're going to get results pretty soon now after this. Well, it's now 12 o'clock high. You can tell by the brightness here in Las Vegas. It's noontime, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, of course. And caucus doors here in Nevada are now closed across the state. And according to NBC News, the race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders is, here's the line, too early to call. Too early to call. We don't have enough information to call this one yet. Let's bring in Chuck Todd. Chuck, this one back again to the fact of the politics that's going to come out of here. Give us a sense of the firepower of the results that are going to come out of here in the next hour or so.
Well, look, I think it's a big deal in either direction for this reason. This is set up as a test for Sanders with an electorate that right now, according to what we're looking at, looks like at least a little more than a third non-white voters. If he can win under these circumstances, it starts to puncture the mythology that somehow Hillary Clinton is unbeatable on March 1st, that the states, as soon as the electorates get more diverse, she can't be beat. That's why this is such a, I think, mental test of importance for the Sanders campaign, for the perception of the Sanders campaign as a potential nominee. That's why a victory by Clinton, even by a half point or a point, while it shows she's going to have a hard time getting this nomination, it puts her in the driver's seat because it's a reminder, if she can hold off Sanders in a diverse electorate under these circumstances, it actually gets easier for her as these become primaries. South Carolina, then look at Super Tuesday of Alabama, of Georgia, of Texas. So I think it really is a mental barrier, I think, here for Sanders, why a victory for him is so important because of the diversity factor of this state, and this allows him, it's more momentum. He wins tonight, it's a $5-6 million fundraising night again for him.
You know, when you talk to people, as you do and I do, you walk around, especially out here, we're all so exposed and everybody comes up and talks to you if you're on television, in the news, and people are pretty open about they're very explicit about their reasons to be for Bernie. They say college tuition, they talk about that, they talk about Social Security benefits going up and being paid for by those at the very top economically. They're very specific about what they like about Bernie. The tag socialist, democratic socialist doesn't grab them. It's that he will give them what they need in life. It's very specific.
He's won that tells you that he's got a message and he's won the message argument. And actually, when you look at the exit poll, it's pretty clear he has won the message argument. He may not win the caucuses today, but he's winning on message. His messages are winning, the issue of income inequality, or if you're worried about the economy. If you're an issue-focused Democratic voter right now, you do find it looks like you're gravitating more toward Bernie, and I think that's the Clinton challenge. There isn't an idea or a plan yet that she has that voters are grabbing onto that is, this is why I'm for Hillary, beyond, well, she can win. That's not it, right? I still think, win or lose out of here, that's something she's got to solve. That is something she has got to come up with. Is it the one big idea? Is it the big theme of what she brings that's different, that's unique, that's a special sauce? But, that is what's been elusive to her, because you're right. I experienced the same thing. Bernie people have a reason why. It's not anti-Clinton. It's, I like this plan. I like that plan. I like this plan. Yes, it may be pie in the sky, but they like that he's got a plan. And that's what she needs to sell more.
And it doesn't work among Democratic people. Maybe it does among Republicans, maybe some independents, to say that we can't afford these things, or they won't work politically. Because you've heard this thing out there where Barack Obama's theme was, yes, we can, and Hillary says, no, we can't. If it becomes a negative sort of downer kind of thing like that, what about the gender thing? We only heard it once today on the air. A woman, I'd say a woman in her 30s or 40s maybe, saying she's for, maybe older than that, but saying she's for Hillary because she's a woman. I'm not sure that's resonating. I don't hear it.
I don't either, and I don't know why that is. Has she not planted the seeds enough? I mean, I think early on in her campaign, they did want to have gender play, not a central role, but a main role. You know, the idea of history. And I remember early on, the early polling that the Clinton folks did indicated that, particularly with millennials, that the idea of being a first, of breaking barriers, that's what attracts millennials to a new idea or a new political candidate, right? Which is breaking a barrier. Yeah. And yet, somehow, that has gotten lost. Is it that she just has too much history as a politician, and therefore they're numb to the idea that she's the barrier breaker? I don't know exactly, but that's missing. I don't know if you can force it. Maybe by the general election it's there for her if she does get the nomination, but it is certainly a missing piece of the excitement. If you're wondering why there's a lack of enthusiasm maybe or whatever, that would be the easiest thing to spark, and it's not there for some reason.
I agree with this, like a baseball player rounding third but not tagging third. Something's been missed here. I don't know what it is, a failure to grab. Thank you. It's always brilliant to hear from you, Chuck. Thanks so much. Let's get back. Not always brilliant, but always impressive. Anyway, I can't say brilliant, that sounds ridiculous, but you are great. Anyway, let's get right to our reporters stationed at several caucus sites around the states where the caucuses are actually now underway. People are in the doors. The doors are closed behind them. They're actually engaged now in picking a candidate. MSNBC's Chris Hayes is live at a middle school in the city of Henderson, which is a bit better off economically than here on the Strip. And MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff is live here at the New York Hotel and Casino, up here somewhere behind me. Let's start with Chris Hayes in Henderson. Go ahead, Chris.
So, Chris, this is actually Harry Reid's caucus site. It's a middle school here in Henderson. And just a little while ago, Harry Reid actually came by to visit the caucus site. Of course, the Nevada caucus is this early, and the way they're being done on the Iowa model, this is all Harry Reid's brainchild. He made this all happen. I got a chance to ask him a question about what he thinks about Nevada's role in this primary process.
There's not the same, Iowa and New Hampshire, they have this sort of status, and they've had it for a long time. Do you feel that the political world recognizes the sort of importance of Nevada?
I didn't like the status. That's why we have a caucus here. I think it was unfair to have Iowa and New Hampshire determine who was going to be running for president. Iowa has no diversity, 97% white. To complicate matters, we have a situation in New Hampshire where nobody lives there and there's no diversity. So we're better off moving west. The population centers of this country are moving west. We have a lot of issues out here that are not even talked about east of the Mississippi, and people are forced to talk about them now.
So, Chris, keep in mind that Nevada for years had been having caucuses, but they were not the kind of caucuses like the Iowa caucuses. That was imported in 2008. They actually hired the person who ran the Iowa caucuses to come to Nevada. The first time they did it was in that contested primary in 2008. This is only the second time. You can see, though, there's real huge turnout here. This is people taking, a big chunk out of their Saturday. People are still lining up. We're coming up right on noon when the caucuses are supposed to start. There's one caucus site behind me here. And this should be familiar to anyone that watched our coverage in Iowa when I was in that center in Des Moines. Very similar, in fact, identical setup, right? Folks are going to get into their preference groups. They're going to check for viability. Then they're going to split up after that. And you've got a lot of people out here. This is, again, only the second time they've done this. There's not the 100-year-long tradition. But if this caucus location is any indication, the idea has really taken root here.
Can you tell by watching the people there if they're real passionate people or more like regular voters who vote because they believe in voting and they make up their mind when they get there? How many people there look activist to you? You know what an activist looks like.
Yeah.
How many are that?
That's a great question, Chris. I would say it's about 50-50, right? So so far, the folks I've talked to, about half of them are pretty. These are the kinds of people that are generally very, very active in politics, right? They consume a lot of political news. They might volunteer. They might be the kind of people that knock on doors or are active in local school board elections. And then I would say about half of the folks seem more just like the folks that you'd find on election day going to a polling site, right? They're voters, but they are not, totally political junkies. So I would say roughly about half and half about the people I've talked to.
Well, what about the lines outside? How's that? Are people still waiting to get in, or is that all over now?
They are. Here, we'll show you. So they anyone who's online obviously gets to in. This is part of the issue again with the caucus process, right? Is it's kind of a big rigmarole. I mean, Donald Trump had a quote yesterday, a sort of unexpected moment of, I think, truth-telling, when he said, "I like voting where you get in, you vote, you get out," which I think there's something to be argued for. This is what the caucus looks like, right? People got to come in the register. They got to go to their individual precinct. They got to gather. They're raising their hands right now. Those are folks checking, I think, to see who the affinity groups are. All of this takes some time. I mean, you have to be pretty committed on a Saturday, your 2 days off, to come in and spend 2 or 3 hours, getting together with your fellow citizens on this. If you're really into politics, I think it's fun. People here are having a really good time, but it's a real investment.
Yeah, I wonder what people would find more onerous, having to get a photo ID like a driver's license or showing up for half a day. Anyway, that to me is a hurdle. Just thinking like a regular person.
If we turn national actual elections into something like this, we would watch turnout plummet by probably about 80%.
I know. I was trying to think of who the poet was that said socialism will never make it in America because people don't go to meetings. We'll figure that one out by November, though. That's a long question. Anyway, thank you for that, Chris Hayes. Let's go now to Jacob Soboroff and find out what's going on in the city here above us, here on the Strip in Las Vegas.
Chris, I want to reiterate that while it is 12 o'clock local time, 3 Eastern, and the doors technically are supposed to be closed right now, there are way too many people in line here in the New York, to actually close the doors so far. This is the back of the line. Hi, guys. Was it a long line? Long line down there?
Yeah.
Super long? How long? Was it a long line?
Yeah.
What I've been told, Chris, is, and you're in the hotel here with me, it stretches from the elevator out to the Starbucks, which means nothing to anybody at home, but it's probably about 100 yards. It's a very long line downstairs. And then look at all of these people that are still here registering to vote and getting ready to check in. And then I quickly want to show you inside one more time. This room's filling up. They did not expect the turnout, I don't think, that they have here today. In 2008, just to reiterate, it was 1,000 people came here to caucus. I don't know if the number is going to reach that high, but people are continuing to pour in, and there's a lot of Hillary support here, actually.
Are they on the clock, or are they off for this? Are they not working? Are they on their 8-hour shifts or what?
This is what's unbelievable, Chris, is that a lot of people are here and they need to get back by the end of their lunch break at 1:15. An official here earlier told me that people can actually get penalized or in trouble if they don't get back to work by 1:15 local time, which is an hour and 15 minutes approximately from now. So that goes back to what Chris Hayes was just talking about, which is some people think this caucus process is a little bit undemocratic. If you get a race here and get your vote in, or caucus, get into your preference group in time to get back to work so you don't get in trouble, some people might think that's a little suspect.
Yeah, but it looks like it was written by Harry Reid, or somebody of like mind politically, so that people who do have tough shifts during the day get a break from work. Even getting an hour is kind of I'm kind of amazed that employers even give them an hour to leave their slot machines or their craps tables or whatever, or their concierge desk, to actually go and vote in a presidential election while they're getting paid to work at a casino.
I think that speaks to the power of the unions and the hotels, Chris, because as you know, we've talked about all day long, the culinary union, 57,000 strong, while they're not endorsing in this election, is in fact, allowing their members, encouraging their members to go out and participate. They're just not saying like they did last time, we endorsed Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton. So the unions still have a lot of pull in this situation and do want to see their members go out, whoever they vote for this time around, and caucus.
It's great reporting, Jacob, as always. Thank you so much. We're going to check back with you soon to see how the people are voting. We're now getting our very first entrance poll numbers from the Nevada Democratic Caucus. These are entrance polls out here because that's what you do in a caucus. Steve Kornacki joins us now at MSNBC headquarters in New York, 30 Rock we call it, to break down those numbers for us. Steve,
yeah,
what are
Chris,
you seeing?
so we can show you a couple things here. First of all, what the electorate looks like. Now, again, these aren't the final entrance poll numbers. These are subject potentially to some change, but you see an electorate here that's 64%, roughly 2/3 white, 12% black, 17% Hispanic. A bit of a change from the last time around. In 2008, the number of Hispanics was a little lower, it was 15%. The number of African-American voters was a little higher, it was about 15%. But the same basic breakdown we saw in 2008, about 2/3 white, about 1/3 non-white. Some interesting divides. Again, we've been looking at this all along. The age sort of barrier in this race, 45 and under, we've been seeing it overwhelmingly for Sanders in the first two states. Seeing that again today in this entrance poll data, a 76-20 lead for Sanders over Clinton with those under 45. The reverse, over 45, Clinton leading by 2-1. If there's a bit of good news here for Hillary Clinton, it's that Nevada, the population of Nevada, this is one of the oldest states in the country when you talk about average age of the population. So Clinton doing well with 45 plus. That might bode a little well for her there. Also, the income divide. Again, this is a departure from something we saw in the Clinton-Obama race in 2008, but this is something that we've been seeing in this race, and that is with those with less money, with less than $50,000 a year in income, Bernie Sanders again beating Hillary Clinton here by double digits in Nevada. With those making more than $50,000 more upper income, Hillary Clinton leading by almost 10 points. In 2008, this was the opposite. The lower income voters were going for Hillary Clinton. The upper income voters were going for Barack Obama. But we've seen Bernie Sanders making inroads. We saw this in Iowa and New Hampshire with blue collar white voters. That is potentially, we're also seeing something here in Nevada. A lot of these numbers, again, subject to change. We have more entrance poll data coming, but getting our first look at the electorate here today, Chris.
Fascinating. Let's go right now to John Ralston, who's an expert out here. He's from Ralston Live. He's in New York right now. Actually, he's in Washington. Let me ask you, John, I've noticed a little downtick among black voters, if these numbers hold up throughout the day, down to 12 from 15. Well, you don't have an African-American candidate for president running. That's a big, that's no surprise, a dip of 3 points. The uptick from 15 to 17 for Hispanic voters could just be demographics. How do you analyze these numbers?
Well, I think what you said is right. Let's take the African-American ones first, Chris. You're right about Barack Obama maybe causing an uptick, but also Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton pretty substantially, of course, among African-American voters in 2008. She has almost every African-American elected official in Nevada endorsing her, the prominent ones. That's very helpful to her, I think, if she's had some national African-American leaders come in and campaign for her. I think you're right about the Hispanic vote. The Democrats have been trying to pump that up, and they will in November as well. I think that's a big deal to make Nevada go blue again, Chris. But the real question is, how are those Hispanic voters going to decide in this race? You saw some of Steve's numbers there. Hillary Clinton had that cohort locked up. Bernie Sanders has made inroads, even by Emmy Ruiz's own admission. She's the state director of the Hillary campaign. So if she can win much more substantially among African-American voters and hold her own with Hispanic voters, considering the composition of that electorate, Chris, I think she should do all right.
What about the economics? People at the bottom economically. Where would they go? They obviously, if you listen to Bernie Sanders, he's appealing to you. He's saying, I'm going to get your Social Security benefits much higher than they are right now with no cost to you. I'm going to tax the rich for that. I'm going to give your kids, when they turn 18, a chance to go to a top-rated school, a state university, for free. These are offers it's hard to refuse if you believe the candidate has a chance of getting elected and will deliver in a Republican contested world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but Chris, I don't think, and you and Chuck were talking about this, I don't think people who are going for Bernie Sanders are really thinking about whether he can get this stuff done, whether that the candy he's giving them is free or there's going to be a price later on. The enthusiasm for what he's saying, free college, let's clean up politics, is going to trump any enthusiasm on the other side for Hillary Clinton as the first woman president. She had those folks locked in already, right?
I agree, and I think the word aspirational is key. It's why do people come to this country? Aspirations. They don't know they're going to make it. They don't know they're going to find a job or even survive, but they're coming out of aspiration. And that same kind of draw, if you will, lure, It's Bernie Sanders. He's saying, no, you're picking me, at least aspiring what I'm aspiring to, which is an opportunity for everybody to go to a good school for university level and a chance for people to retire without fear and have health care without having to dicker for it and fight with insurance companies and figure out, exchanges and all that stuff. Wait a minute, I want it like my parents have it. I want Medicare for everybody. It's very appealing. I've come to understand that, John. Anyway, thanks for joining us. The race, go ahead, your thoughts.
No, just real quickly, Chris, I just want to say, it looks from forget what the entrance poll says, it looks from all my sources out there in the field in Nevada, like the turnout looks in the early going to be very, very high. And if there's a lot of those folks that you were just talking about who hear something aspirational in what Bernie Sanders is saying, if that's who's turning out, then we're going to be in here, we're going to be in for a long night, I think, Chris.
Yep. John Ralston, you know what you're talking about. Anyway, the race here in Nevada is too early to call. NBC's declaring that now. That's our call right now. Stay with us as we follow the returns in the fight between Hillary Clinton and Bernie. This is a one-on-one out here. Clinton versus Sanders. Our live coverage of the Nevada caucuses and the South Carolina primary, both today, continue live from Las Vegas here, the place for politics. Welcome back to our coverage of the Nevada Democratic caucuses out here. It's a beautiful day out here in Nevada. By the way, this is someplace to visit. It's different. Let me just say that, Las Vegas. The caucuses are underway, and we can report. That's what we're saying officially now, that the race now is too early to call. It's hard to tell what that means, but it means we can't call. Right now, from my colleague Chris Hayes, we're going to go to that caucus site in Henderson with a congresswoman from California out trying to move votes, I think, for Hillary. Chris, take over.
Chris, we are here in Henderson at a middle school. This is actually Harry Reid's caucus site, and it has had a lot of sort of high-profile visitors throughout the day. Harry Reid was here earlier, sort of surveying the scene. There's 12 precincts caucusing here. There's still people filing in. It's a very heavy turnout. Also, Congressman Jason Chaffetz was here of Utah, Republican Jason Chaffetz, who's a Marco Rubio supporter. He was here basically to troll the Democrats and essentially try to get in front of a camera to tell everyone why Marco Rubio was best to take on the Democratic nominee. I told him Marco Rubio probably has to win some states first. I also have with me Congressman Zoe Lofgren. She's from San Jose. 10-term Congresswoman, serves on the Judiciary Committee. And who are you here to support?
I'm here to support Hillary Clinton.
So you and I were having an interesting conversation before about who you endorsed in the past. Right. Who did you endorse in 2004?
Well, I was the first member of Congress to support Howard Dean. I'm always for the insurgents. I was for Obama in 2008, but I'm for Hillary this time.
So you were a Dean person or Obama person. You tend to side with the insurgents. Why are you not feeling the burn?
Well, I've served with Bernie, and almost everybody who has served with Bernie is supporting Hillary.
You guys keep saying that, and we're supposed to fill in the blanks. I want you to explicitly say what you mean by that.
Well, you look at someone's achievement level, and there's very little to show in terms of legislative achievement. I know you don't want to be snarky about it, but the truth hurts, and Hillary has accomplished a lot, not only in the Senate, but also outside as, Secretary of State. I've been here talking to people, and they want to know what it's like in Congress and about various things. And one of the things that still irks me is that Bernie was one of those who helped kill immigration reform in 2007. I was chair of the immigration subcommittee that year, and we went over and begged the senators to move it along so that we had the votes in the House, and Hillary voted for it, Harry Reid voted for it, Pat Leahy, the other senator from Vermont, voted for it, but Bernie didn't, and we've never gotten that close again.
It's funny you bring that up because Congressman Luis Gutierrez, obviously, who was one of the champions of comprehensive immigration reform, he was on my show last night. He also brought it up. Clearly, frustrated by that McCain-Kennedy vote.
Well, yeah. We did something that's not very usual. John Conyers, the chairman of the committee, me, chairman of the subcommittee, and Luis, as House members, went over to the Senate floor and talked to senators and begged them to vote yes. And a lot of them did, but Bernie wouldn't.
We should note that it wasn't like Bernie was the deciding vote on the McCain-Kennedy. The Republicans basically killed it because their base rejected it.
There were a lot of things going on, but Bernie did not stand with us, and I resented.
All right. Well, Congressman Lofgren, it's great to have you here.
Very good.
All right, Congressman Lofgren, working the crowd. One of the undecided voters we talked to earlier got a pitch from Congressman Lofgren. We may got to try to go find her, and we have a real-time test of the persuasive powers of the 10-term Congresswoman from San Jose. We'll see how that comes out in the wash in a little bit, Chris.
Well, it's great to see Zoe Lofgren there. What a great member of Congress she's been all these years. And by the way, her successor was Don Edwards, another great member of Congress. Anyway, thank you very much, Chris Hayes. We're joined now by Luciana Lopez of Reuters, MSNBC's Alex Seitwald, and the Daily Beasts. Got to explain that someday, Michael Tomasky. You're not a beast, are you?
I'm certainly not a beast.
Okay, let me ask you about this. I know the Daily Beast.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this race out here, and I keep going back 8 years ago to thinking, watching the coverage from some casino here, and watching Hillary Clinton beat Obama, at least that night.
Yeah.
You know, and we thought, oh my God, Hillary's, she's won New Hampshire, she's won here, she's going to be the nominee. So we get misdirection sometimes by these events.
Well, we do, and South Carolina's next, and Obama won South Carolina and won it pretty big, and then he was able to go on and build up some other victories and enough to get through. So, I agree with
Horror of horrors, could South Carolina, with all the vagaries and dirty tricks down there, actually be a state that's the best leading indicator of who wins?
Well, those are mostly on the Republican side more than the Democratic side. But look, I go back to what you and Chuck were talking about. Clinton's problem is this: people aren't really focused yet, Democratic voters, on the question of electability so much. And when Hillary Clinton tries to make these arguments that he's not pragmatic, he's not realistic, it's just kind of fallen on deaf ears. The argument that she really needs to make about that is that what this is going to do to your tax bill, but she doesn't want to make that argument.
Republicans are so much better at that.
Yes, right.
Alex,
right.
They're so much better at coming out and saying, sorry, buddy, you can't afford it. They're very good at that sort of negative practicality. Democrats don't want to be the Debbie Downer.
Well, I was just looking at some of the exit polls that have come out early, and to the earlier question of are you voting for November, are you voting for right now, only 21% are saying that they're most concerned about electability. So that means 80% are concerned about, cares about the issues, cares about people like me, other things. And that's what we're hearing on the ground so much when I talk to people.
You know the phrase NDC? It used to be New Democratic Coalition. It was the activist left of Democratic. We all loved it. But the joke on them was November doesn't count.
Right.
All they want to do is win primaries because that made them feel great ideologically. And then they go down to horrible defeat with George McGovern in 72. Just horrible. McGovern carried what? D.C.? Massachusetts.
Well, and I still think there's this inevitability factor that actually works against Clinton in some ways, where even people who are supporting Bernie Sanders think that she's still going to end up as the nominee, so they want to move her to the left.
So
they
it's
want to move her
safer to vote for her. And also, by the way, it's very possible that they are already doing that.
Right.
I look at Hillary Clinton, who really wants to win. Now, this may sound like a knock. Maybe it is. She's willing to adopt an awful lot of the Sanders agenda if that gets her into the White House. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. I mean, she's, on minimum wage, TPP, Keystone XL, you could go down the list. There's a lot of things where she's moved. She's really aligned herself with where the Democratic Party is today. But the problem for her is that when she does that, the story isn't, look, Hillary Clinton is a progressive. The story is Hillary Clinton is a flip-flopper. Hillary Clinton has changed positions.
She's holding off on a couple of things. She will not say free college.
Sure. And she won't go to a $15 minimum wage. She goes to a $12 minimum wage. So it complicates the message.
Ahead. You know what I think she's thinking? I'm going to have to pass these bills. And I will be considered a failure or a traitor if I can't, so I better not promise what I can't deliver.
She's actually developed a pretty good line about the college. She said last night at her rally, she said, I don't want Donald Trump's kids to have free college.
Yeah, well, that's a de minimis argument. Maybe there ought to be a merit-based system of some kind along the way. I think there ought to be a merit-based system where, like a lot of us got assistantships to college, graduate school, we got loans, real low-rated loans. There are a lot of ways between what we have now, which is horrible for people, and free. There's a lot of middle ground there.
But the problem is it's also really complicated to explain that to voters. So I was at her town hall.
How about 3% interest instead of 8%? I think I get that.
Well, I was at a town hall that she did with some students at a high school yesterday, and I talked to some of the students afterwards, and they had said that they liked what she said about debt-free college, but they didn't quite understand how she had laid it out. And so I asked them, will you go to her website to check it out? And they were like, maybe. So she's communicating with people in a way that maybe isn't always as clear as it needs to be.
Okay, do people want clarity? I'm just seriously about this. Bernie says he's going to pay for these free tuitions at all the great universities in the country, state universities, with something called a tax on Wall Street speculation. Now, that sounds great. We're going to screw the bad guys. And I asked the people, what do you mean by a tax on Wall Street speculation? They said, well, every time you buy or trade $100 worth of stock, you pay a 50 cent or whatever, right? So all of a sudden, your 401k, your mutual fund, everything your grandparents have invested in is now getting taxed as you go in the door. I mean, that doesn't sound like Wall Street speculation. It sounds like just taxing anybody who's going into the equity market.
I mean, the problem is
that sounds like a lot of taxing.
She's right on all these things if you dig down, but it's the vegetables. She's trying to sell broccoli, and Bernie Sanders is selling ice cream. And, you know, you're going to feel terrible the next day if you eat a lot of ice cream. But for the moment, it sounds pretty good.
And saying to people Wall Street speculation, everyone has a different image of what that is.
Well, speculation is bad.
Yeah, well, yeah. No one's like, my 401k is Wall Street speculation. No, of course not. So again, in a way, it gets to be kind of all things to all people because you just use these words that people then get to kind of define.
Here's the number one irony of our time. Everybody hates people who make money off money. The captains of the universe, zillionaires making money off other people's money. Yet everybody who retires or begins to want to save wants better than the interest rate. They want somebody who can do that for them. I've had this thrown back at me when I said, I don't like all these money. Wait a minute, do you want something? Yeah, you want something. Anyway, when we return, new numbers from our interest polling, so we're going to know how the people voted out here. The news is going to start flowing our way. Steve Kornacki will have it for us. And we're going to go back inside the caucuses here on the Vegas Strip upstairs with some great reporting as the caucuses are underway. Nobody else is doing this kind of reporting, I don't think, except us. Anyway, at the state of Nevada Democratic caucuses today, we're going to have big results the next hour or so. Right now, the race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders is, unfortunately for those who want a result, who don't have the ability to sustain their interest, too early to call. No instant gratification this afternoon. Our coverage continues after this.
Our cosmetics line was a hit. The orders were rushing in.
I could feel our deadlines racing towards us. We didn't need a loan. We needed short-term funding, fast.
Building 18 homes in 4.5 months, that was a leap. But I knew I could rely on American Express to help me buy those building materials.
Amex helped me buy the inventory I needed.
Our Amex helped us fill the orders, just like that.
Another step on the journey. Will you be ready when growth presents itself? Realize your buying power at open.com.
London is under attack.
President Asher has just been taken.
We're going to kill him slowly and broadcast it live.
Yeah, here's something I want you to hear first. Things are gonna get sporty. Go, go, go! If anybody but me opens that door, point this at the bad guy. Attaboy.
London Has Fallen in theaters March 4th. Meet the lumberjack whose flannel was out of whack. Freedom to move is what he lacked, even when woodland creatures attack. Until they put Duluth free swinging flannel on his back, with armpit gussets to whack and hack. Now he's known as a lumberjack. Duluth Trading free swinging flannel. Swinging made easy. Flannel made burly. Get it. Only at DuluthTrading.com.
Why are you all here? To learn, right? So you can get a good job. So you're not working for peanuts. Well, what if I told you that peanuts can work for you? While you guys are busy napping, peanuts are delivering 7 grams of protein and 6 essential nutrients right to your mouth. You ever seen a peanut take a day off? No. Peanuts don't even get casual khaki Fridays because peanuts take their job seriously. So unless you want a life of skimming Wi-Fi off the neighbors, you'll harness the hard-working power of the peanut.
It takes a lot of work to run this business. I'm on the move all day long. And sometimes, I just don't eat the way I should. So I drink Boost to get the nutrition that I'm missing.
Boost Complete Nutritional Drink has 26 essential vitamins and minerals, including calcium and vitamin D to support strong bones, and 10 grams of protein to help maintain muscle, all with a great taste.
I don't plan on slowing down anytime soon.
Stay strong, stay active with Boost. Now try new Boost Compact and 100 calories.
And Hillary, she's very well maybe the nominee.
She's really talented. She's been doing this for
Bernie Sanders is authentic and clear in his message. He's been saying these things his entire life.
Also
over 10,000. Especially as journalists, we wish every candidate had the Donald Trump approach to an interview.
But he loves people.
I need my morning Joe.
We're about to see the voters actually inside the New York Hotel and Casino break into groups now. This is how it works at the caucus here. We're going to go back to Jacob Soboroff in a minute, but first, we've got more information from the entrance polls in the Nevada Democratic caucuses. Let's go now. For that, let's go to Steve Kornacki at 30 Rock.
Yeah, and Chris, as we say, these numbers, they keep changing. We get more waves of this entrance poll data. So some interesting things that we can show you right now. Take a look here among white voters. And right now we're looking at just over 60% of the voters in Nevada, the caucus goers, saying that they're white. Among white voters, Sanders, right now in this early numbers, taking a lead over Clinton by 8 points. Also, interestingly, again, in the early data here, among Hispanic voters, currently that's almost 20% saying they're Hispanic. Bernie Sanders leading by 11 points over Hillary Clinton among Hispanic voters. We don't have a large enough sample in these entrance polls yet to see how black voters are breaking down. Obviously, that's a group that Hillary Clinton, we've been seeing a lot of advantages for her with in a lot of the polling before this. And also a question that's in this entrance poll where you're seeing a big divide here. This was a huge part of the debate between these candidates about whether the next president should continue President Obama's policies or change policies, change to more liberal policies. Not surprisingly, we're seeing a big split between the candidates there. Those who want to continue President Obama's policies overwhelmingly saying they're with Hillary Clinton. Those who want to change them by an equally overwhelming margin saying they're with Bernie Sanders, Chris.
So what does that tell you? I thought it was funny there to have people saying they're white, saying they're Hispanic, because, of course, that's how it's done. You don't look at the person and make that decision if you're registering people or taking the poll. But the fact is that's what they are. And what do you make of the fact that based upon those crosshatches there, those cross-references there about people and how they line up with Obama? Is there any ethnic identification back and forth?
Well, we don't have enough numbers to be making those sorts of, to be splitting it down that specifically yet. But overall, and again, we stressed their early numbers, they can change. We'll see. But in 2008, we said this at the top of the show, Hillary Clinton's biggest advantage here in Nevada was Latino voters. She beat Barack Obama by nearly 40 points among Latino voters in the state in 2008. She may still, as more data comes in, do better with that group. But right now, in these early numbers at least, seeing Bernie Sanders ahead of her among Latino voters, that's a potentially big deal.
Yeah, and I just want to focus on that because we talked about it about a half hour ago, and this is something that was brought up. If you're Hispanic and you're in a family of mixed status, where some people in the family, older generations, are not here with papers, they're not citizens, they're not voting, but the younger people are voting. They're voting on behalf of the whole family. That makes perfect sense as a family. They're not happy, we're told, with the way of the progress of this administration in getting immigration reform. Maybe it's not Obama's fault, but they're not happy with it. Does that square with the numbers you're looking at?
Well, it does in terms of also the age gap. We showed you these numbers earlier. Again, you look at voters under 45, and again, we need more numbers to break this down more specifically to like 30 and under and in those sorts of categories. But that basic split, under 45 right now, we're seeing here overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders, over 45, almost equally overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton, something we've seen in other states. And when that's the kind of split, when it's that clear along age lines, you're going to see it start to break into different ethnic groups too.
Wow, this is great reporting. I'm joined right now by former U.S. Congressman Steve Horsford of Nevada. He was a member out here. He also led Barack Obama's caucus's effort back here in 2008. Well, Congressman, run through. You must be, everything on your mind is beyond us because you've been through all this. What do you, I mean it, you've been through it, so you've had experience in discovering what happens in these caucuses. What do you make of these ethnic breakdowns and what we're getting right now, what it means about attitudes towards this administration?
Well, clearly, as Steve just reported on, the break by age and the fact that millennials really are looking for fundamental change. They feel like the political system is rigged against them. They feel like the economy is rigged against them. They're tired of all this big money controlling politics at every level, but particularly the federal level. And I think that's playing out here in these numbers. I think among African Americans in Nevada, I know they are a strong base of support, but we cannot treat all African Americans as one monolithic group, particularly young African Americans who are expecting and in fact want to have more accountability from their elected officials, whether that be Secretary Clinton or Senator Sanders. They want to know what they're going to do for them going forward, not just what they've done in the past.
How would you vote today if you were out there, Congressman?
Well, I am uncommitted, and I am not supporting either candidate because I think that they still have a lot more work to do. I have questions about Senator Sanders and the fact that he did not support the 2007 immigration reform bill, which I know he had concerns about, and rightfully so, but those are questions that people should be asking. I know that Secretary Clinton, there's a lot of pressure on her to really talk to young people about her message and what she's planning to do for people going forward. Yes, she has a strong record. Yes, she's qualified. Yes, she's experienced. We know all that. But what is it that you're going to do in your administration going forward? That's what I'm hearing from a lot of voters, and that's what I think we're going to see play out today in the Nevada caucus.
Congressman, I would add one question to that. How are you going to deal with the Republicans who are going to be there waiting for you? They'll be waiting for Hillary. They'll be waiting for Sanders. They'll be there to destroy their efforts, their agenda. There's nothing in common with the Republicans, so you're going to face that battle. I'd ask any politician running for president, how are you going to work your way in a very partisan atmosphere in Washington? Very partisan. But you know it better than I do, and I love what you said. I love what you said about big money in politics, and you would know a lot more about that, having been through the ringer and knowing what it's like. There's self-funders and everything. Thank you so much, former U.S. Congressman Stephen Horsford. Let's go now to MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff, who's with the caucus upstairs here. I keep saying it sounds so funny. This is New York, New York. It's a big hotel and casino out here, and it's quite a place. He's upstairs with the voters. Jacob.
Chris, you know, I don't know if it's just as a former advance guy, political advance guy, I don't know if this is just good advance work by the Democratic Party or if they got more people than they expected. But I was told, and I think you got our bird's eye view camera, that they took seats out of here before this thing started because they thought maybe 100 people were going to show up. This place is jam-packed right now, and I think it's probably actually out of range of the camera over here. But people are sitting on the floor down in this area. They say the last people have come off the elevator and they're about ready to get to caucus. Take a look over here. It's just absolutely filled up with people. Lots and lots, as I said before, Hillary Clinton shirts. The official business of the caucus, what needs to happen before, including a little fundraising on behalf of the Nevada Democratic Party, is finished. And so now all we are literally waiting for is for the last person to walk through that door. And then maybe it's happening right now, Chris, so stand by, okay?
We have a Gregory Price. Gregory, your ID.
Well, we've just gotten word. We've just gotten word, by the way, from MGM that the employees do get paid leave, 3 hours of paid leave in that case to go vote in these caucuses. So the employers are helping out our democracy here today. That's good news.
That's exactly right. Chris, that announcement was also made here in the room. MGM is obviously the owner of the New York. It's a giant hotel across the street from here as well. And someone actually had heard me mention that I had heard that people may get penalized if they're not back to work in time. That doesn't apply to every hotel, and MGM in particular is allowing people as long as it takes to get out of this room in order to get back to work today.
So what can we tell so far about the activist level? Can you tell? Let's face it, we're all trying to figure out who's going to win out there. Can you tell?
To my eye, there's a lot of Hillary Clinton supporters here at this event. There's also a lot of folks from unions on both sides. The nurses union is here in support of Bernie Sanders, and then the commercial food grocery workers are here as well in support of Hillary Clinton. They have to go in what's called observer areas in this caucus location. So as I sort of navigate here to try to show you this, there's a little piece of tape that's on the floor right here, Chris, and this is for observers, people that are not caucusing but that are coming here to support the candidates, and they're in this area to watch on behalf of the campaign, but not to support. And a lot of those folks are union members.
Are you hearing people talk issues at all? Jacob, are you hearing issues discussed, or is it just enthusiasm for a name of a candidate?
No, you absolutely are. And in fact, what happens is before this process gets started, the caucus chair stands up on that podium up there and reads a letter from each of the candidates. And one moment in particular that got a rousing response was a letter was being read from Bernie Sanders by the caucus chair talking about our gay brothers and sisters in the words of the letter. And there was a big round of applause at that moment. That moment in particular was sort of one of the loudest ovations we've heard so far up here.
Okay, you know, we're going to have a very distinguished guest here to my left here any second now, but you know, I love the way you're reporting out there. I think people are seeing something like, and just looking at the pictures now out there, that we've never gotten to see before. We've heard about caucuses, we've gotten entrance polls before, but I've never seen the process so dramatically displayed as we've been doing on the program here and as we did in Iowa. And we'll be doing it again with the later caucuses. Jacob, thank you so much again, and congratulations on the reporting. We've got Joaquin Castro here from Texas, San Antonio, I believe.
Yes.
San Antonio, the city. And what do you make of this caucus process out here?
You know, it was wonderful. Now, I got to say, being from Texas, I've never caucused in a casino. But there was incredible energy. I worked the line at New York for Hillary. I think at least there, it seemed like she won about 60% of the vote.
Is that enough?
Well, I think
this is her area here.
Yeah, no, it's a competitive race, and I heard it in the voices of the people. They were describing, some of them, that it was tough. It was a legitimately tough decision for her.
She has clung very effectively, I mean, let's say dramatically to the president the last several weeks.
Sure.
She said, I'm with him and this Bernie guy, we're not sure. That's been her approach. But then you're hearing it because of Hispanic people worried about the fact they can't get immigration reform because I don't think it's the Democrats' fault, but it's your watch, you get blamed if you can't get something done. Is that hurting Hillary Clinton that they haven't gotten, that the community hasn't gotten immigration reform in all these 8 years?
No, I mean, I think the Latino community is definitely frustrated, but for the most part, I think they know where the blame lies with the Republicans, with the House of Representatives that could have put that bill on the floor that passed the Senate.
And
so
Boehner just said no to you guys.
Sure.
He just said, I'm not going to let you vote, even though you think it would have passed.
Oh, it definitely would have passed. There were about 25 to 30 Republicans who had gone on record saying they supported comprehensive reform. If they had not followed the Hastert rule, which you know about, and had
it
put
never
that
existed
bill,
before Hastert.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure Hastert believed in it.
Well, and it only started with
it meant you can't have a vote unless the majority of the Republican caucus supports it, so therefore you can't have a Democratic vote on the floor of the House.
Right. Which really, you know, people wonder why there's so much gridlock in Washington.
That's one reason.
In the Senate, it's the filibuster, but in the House, it's the Hastert rule.
Yeah, but now that we're talking Hispanic politics out here, everybody should remember that a dozen Republican senators, including people like Lindsey Graham and John McCain from Arizona, supported the comprehensive bill.
Sure.
And it was a compromise bill. It has some tough teeth in it.
About 68 votes, which is not, you know, just by the skin of its teeth. No. I mean, that's a solid majority, and they didn't put it on the floor for a vote. You know, and Hillary Clinton, I believe, is somebody who will get in there as president and continue to fight. She'll use her executive power to do everything that she can to expand the rights of immigrants.
I want to bring in these folks here with my fellow colleagues. That's redundant. But let me ask you about this issue. Let's talk Hispanic vote now, because here we are in the city of Las Vegas, which has so many people. When we just walk around here, everywhere you meet is somebody working here, a lot of them Hispanics. You know, it's amazing.
Well, there's no doubt that immigration is one of the top issues for union workers, for Latinos. But the other big issue, the economy, and I was in there talking to some of the caucus goers. They keep talking about college education. Of course, that's one of the issues that Senator Sanders has talked a lot about, but it's sticking.
How do you beat that when a guy says, you want to go to the University of UNLV, you want to go to the University of Texas? Free. That's a great offer. If you're making about $40 a year and you're just scraping by and paying your bills, and you got a bunch of kids coming along, they all have good grades in school and high school, and you go, the only thing keeping them from going to a good college is the price of going.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, we know that Hillary's got an incredible plan also to make sure that college is affordable. That's especially important to the Latino community because it is an aspiring community in America, a community that's making its way up the socioeconomic ladder. So it is something that's very important, but I think that what she's done has resonated with them also.
You know, go ahead. I want to ask about this crazy thing about the word socialism, you know. Growing up, it was never seen as communist. Socialists were the best enemies of communists there are in the world. They're the ones that fight it out tooth and nail against the communists in every European country, including all the countries that we really like, modern democracies. But I also think that people who come here from Latin America have a very bad experience with government generally. They're not big believers in big government. You know, they've seen some pretty lousy governments.
Certainly they've been burned by some of those governments over the years.
And they wonder whether the word socialist has any meaning at all. Does it have any resonance when he says I'm a democratic socialist?
In terms of gaining him support? Or
among the people voting, day to day here? Is it too early in the process?
Yeah, it didn't come up too much today, honestly, the labels. But yeah, I mean, historically, there have been countries in Latin America from which people have fled, you know, countries that were torn by war. There was a gentleman, a Cuban American who fled Cuba, and I asked him now, you know, are you going to plan and visit and go back? And he said no. He was glad that he left, and he's glad that he's here in the United States. Yeah. So certainly I think it's a concern for some folks. But what I really found in this line today of people going to caucus is that people care about the issues. They were very thoughtful about things like the economy, criminal justice reform, healthcare, education. So it was very heartening to see. And most of all, I thank them for voting, because our participation rates all over the country have lagged in recent years. So I said thank you for going out and voting.
Those issues, that's really what's animating the Sanders campaign as well. And they pay very close attention to especially what people are saying online about their campaign, because that's where a lot of their energy comes from. And they are focused overall on exactly what you were just talking about. And so I think the more that focus is laser sharp, the better off the Sanders campaign is. I think the question is going to be on this Latino vote question. Even if this contest is so close in the end, even if Hillary Clinton comes out just a little bit on top, if Bernie Sanders' numbers with Latinos are solid and he still can come out and say, hey, I made inroads in a community that, isn't just young, isn't just white, looks like the way the Democratic Party looks, I think that's going to be pretty significant, regardless of the overall top line. And my question for you would be, what happens when we get to Texas? Yeah. And where do Latinos, where do you see Latinos in Texas feeling about these two candidacies right now?
Well, I think Hillary's doing well there. She's still up by about 20 points. And more, the Latino community is getting a sense for Bernie Sanders' history with respect to the issue of immigration. He voted against comprehensive immigration reform in 2007. I tweeted directly at him a few days ago about his vote on a Republican bill that helped protect Minutemen along the Texas-Mexico border. He voted on a bill or an amendment that essentially allowed for unlimited detention. When we think about detention centers and the number of beds, people being kept. So, there is an upside to people not knowing your record. It allows you to gain popularity without being scrutinized a lot. But also, as people learn your record, they can find some troubling things about it.
Isn't it astounding for all of us involved that in 10 days, we're going to have 11 states vote on one day, including your state? It's going to be such a tsunami of voting. Let me go back to Doug Soboroff, who's out there, Jacob Soboroff, who's in the caucuses and upstairs here at New York Casino and Hotel. Jacob.
You guys are the star of the show. So we want everybody.
Hey, Chris, it's Jacob. I'm up here in the room right now, and it looks like, just trying to check this out, they're about to get underway with the caucus process. As you know, what's going to happen is people are going to split up into preference groups. That's the caucus chair, who's actually the vice chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. They bring in big shots for these at-large caucuses because so many people from so many different locations are a part of this process. So now what's happening is, and if you could walk with me for 1 second, all these people have their preference cards, right?
So if you are not caucusing,
so all these people that have gotten up and have moved over here have not moved into their preference group yet, but they've showed up to they've gone up to that location because they have a ticket to caucus. It is called a ticket or a caucus ticket to allow them to participate in this process. Now, as these people move to this area, they're now going to be instructed. I don't want to go beyond the line they've asked me not to go beyond, but the caucus chairperson is going to instruct them to go to their preference groups for their candidates. And I don't know, Chris, if you want to stick with us while that happens, or if you want to check back in just a second as they've done that. But the wheels of democracy are starting to go in motion here.
Well, I think the question is about, we're trying to figure out how these processes are going to lead today. And I was just asking Kristen about whether Hillary Clinton was going to stick around for the results here. Apparently not. And she's already left. This is one tricky bit of business. Can you tell, Jacob, from the voters who are voting, do they know how close this is going to be, the results out here?
I
think everybody feels like this is going to be very, very close. People seem, I wouldn't say nervous, but people seem very excited out here. And just to the point of Hillary Clinton leaving, Chris, that you've mentioned before, these things are not wrapped up yet, right? So I don't know if she's going to come out and say whether or not she wins or loses, thank you, I love Nevada, just like she did in Iowa, and head out, or what. But these results, I mean, there's no way that they're going to be able to count all of this stuff and get it done and get it tabulated and get it up on the Nevada Caucus website in time, at least from my vantage point.
What do you mean we're not going to get information on the results enough? Explain that again, the process of finding out who won here and how it's going to resonate with the two candidates.
So what ends up happening, Chris, is there's a website. It's a website, and there's a voice vote. I'm getting shushed. Sorry about that. I don't want to impede democracy here. There's a voice vote that ends up happening. A vote that ends up happening. People move into their preference groups, and after those preference groups are selected, the caucus chair, this woman up here, which I can show you again, her name is Maureen, and she's from Nebraska, from the state party, is going to either call in using an automated voice system or tabulate, email, digitally send the results in to the party. Those results are going to go up, I believe, on the website nvcaucus.org, and they'll all be listed there. But until they're all certified and official by the state party, the results are not official. And so, again, to me, it doesn't sound like Hillary Clinton, Secretary Clinton, is going to stick around and wait for those results.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for reporting out there from actually from upstairs here. And I got to tell you, while we have a moment here, this is an amazing experience out here, because at the same time, so many tourists are out here. And this place, Las Vegas, is packed with visitors. Last night, coming out of seeing Jersey Boys, which I do recommend people see if they ever get a chance, this whole place is like New York City, Times Square on a weekend night. There's so many people out here having fun. And in the midst of all this entertainment and enjoyment and gambling, I suppose, and whatever else is going on out here, people are voting, and democracy is actually happening right here on the Las Vegas Strip. And these guys, according to MGM, have been given, these workers that we see all the time, the concierge, the croupiers, the people cleaning the rooms, the chambermaids, all these people have gotten 3 hours off to go vote in the caucuses. It's kind of inspiring, the fact that people who've had the jobs that are kind of, these jobs are tough work, a lot of hours, not a lot of money, are getting out and taking the time to go vote in our democratic process with a lot of enthusiasm, as Jacob and Chris have been explaining. These people are really excited about voting. So we're watching democracy in a very animated, spirited way out here, very close, thanks to Jacob and Chris's reporting. I never saw this kind of coverage of politics. This is really getting into the world of the voter as they operate as voters in the midst of their workday here. 8-hour day, get a couple hours off to vote. Still so much more ahead now. New results from the Democratic caucuses here in Nevada coming up very soon. There's about 3 hours to go before the polls actually close in South Carolina at that Republican primary out there in South Carolina. We're going to have the latest on where the Republican candidates are today in that big fight. There are a lot more Republican candidates than there are Democrats. This is the place for politics. We're back from Las Vegas here on the Strip. The caucuses here in Nevada are underway right now. They're actually happening. The race is still, according to NBC, too early to call. That's too early to call. Let's bring in NBC News political director and, of course, the moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Also, John Ralston. He's the host of Ralston Live, which is based out here, but he's back there, an MSNBC political analyst. I said, Chuck, did we know anything we didn't know 2 hours ago? What do we know now? Except the older, we know the ratio of age groups voting. We know something about the ethnic composition of the caucus attendees today.
Well, what we know is what the campaigns are telling us privately about what they think their turnout, and both campaigns feel better than they thought they would. So I don't know. So somebody's blowing smoke with me other than that. But I'm always a little cautious on an entrance poll, only because things, A, can change in a caucus, and B, we're still dealing with a very small sample than as compared to, for instance, the number of actual interviews we've done with our entrance poll is now a third of what the number of interviews that we were able to do in the New Hampshire primary, for instance. So lots of grains of salt on this. But obviously, this Hispanic number, if it's true, is a giant development if Sanders wins Hispanics. It would come as a complete shock and surprise to Team Clinton if it's true. So that's why there's just lots of grains of salt here, Chris.
Well, John Ralston, let me bring you in, because the president and everyone who pays attention now knows that Hillary Clinton has made a real effort to bond herself to this administration, to Barack Obama, as a way of both playing offense and defense with her chief opponent, her only opponent, Bernie Sanders, saying that she's been close to Obama. He has not been. That was her argument coming in here. The downside of that, of course, is if you're disaffected with the failure of this administration and the government as a whole, both parties, to get anything done on immigration, to help legalize your parents, your uncles or whatever, your grandparents, that's not getting done. If the president getting blamed for that, then Hillary's getting blamed for that. Do you think that's what's happening here, John?
I think it is a little bit, but Chris, if I could give you some real news and some real numbers that are out there now.
Sure.
They just counted the votes at Caesar's Palace, and Hillary Clinton won that caucus 71-29. She's now, from what my information I have out in the field, Chris, she has won all 6 of those casino sites now by pretty good margins, which is good news for her. Don't forget, they weren't going to do much there, the culinary union. Then Harry Reid called the head of the union, got them to really organize in there. Hillary Clinton made visits to 4 of those sites, at least, maybe 5 in the waning days. Now you've got hundreds of culinary workers who are out there who got time off work thanks to phone calls made by the Senate Minority Leader that now appears to have greatly helped Hillary Clinton. There's probably going to be, I don't know, around 1,000, 1,500 votes max there, Chris. May not sound like a lot, but she looks like she's winning those casino sites, which is going to make a lot of people think that maybe Harry Reid was trying to help her.
Well, 70%, is that a good number? You said 71, but isn't that what we've been hearing about? 70% of these people along here should be for Hillary based upon past history in 2008.
That's right. She did very well there, Chris, but she needs to really run up the score, it appears, in Clark County, in Las Vegas, in the casinos, to head off losses that she may take in rural and northern Nevada, where Bernie Sanders is thought to be stronger. Now, again, I'm not sure about those entrance polls Chuck was talking about. If those Hispanic numbers are borne out, if Bernie Sanders beats her by double digits among Hispanics, and again, that's very early data, that's going to turn everything around.
Chuck, let's talk about the fact that 10 days from now we'll have 11 contests across the country, a real tsunami of voter participation. And that includes people that have not been campaigned with. They have not had the candidates running through the state, going to every coffee house trying to meet somebody. People who have been less interested in this campaign. What is that? Can Bernie Sanders arouse a majority of the voters who have not been involved in this political process, this cycle, to win? Can he do it? It seems like a hell of an uphill race for him.
We've seen evidence, though, in our national polls. What have we seen, Chris? As Bernie has proved viability in Iowa and in New Hampshire, let's see what happens tonight, more Democrats are finding themselves open to him, right? So all of a sudden, a national Democratic primary number against Hillary Clinton has gone from 20-plus points. It's now down to, I think it was 11 in our last one. Some have had it even closer than that. The point is, you do see the better he does in these early contests, when you get a little extra attention, the better opportunity he has to talk to these casual Democrats who perhaps haven't been paying as much attention. So that's what these early contests mean. The Clinton people will say, well, there's not many delegates. The real race is March 1st. Right, but why Sanders has to do well in the early contest is to prove that he is a player on March 1st. Now, what I'm going to be looking for in the next 10 days, Chris, is how serious is Sanders about winning this nomination? I have been surprised. He has a big potential financial advantage over Clinton right now on cash. He's able to raise money a lot quicker than she is because of his online fundraising ability. I have been surprised at how little money he's put in the March 1st states. And the ones he's done, he's cherry picking. It's Minnesota, it's Colorado, it's Massachusetts, places he should do well. We'll know if Sanders is serious about winning this nomination if we see him go up in Texas, in Georgia, in Tennessee, Virginia. Those are bigger states where if he's going to be the nominee, he's got to win one of those states. He can't just cherry-pick caucus states. He's got to win a big state, and it's got to be somewhat diverse, but it's got to be one with a lot of delegates, and that's what we'll know. I'm curious to see what the Sanders campaign will do to make the next big step at truly trying to challenge her for the nomination.
Yeah, can he come back and his people come back and say, Hillary Clinton won all the big states in 2008 and Barack Obama won the nomination?
Well, but it wasn't just, but see, Barack Obama won Georgia. Barack Obama won Virginia. Barack Obama just didn't win caucus states. He won primaries, too. Yeah. So that's what he doesn't have to, there's no doubt she can, if he only lets her win the big states and he comes close and then wins other primaries, that's one thing. Yeah. But that's what I mean. And I look at him as a 4. I'm not saying he's going to win all of them. I'm curious to see if he can win one of them. And I think proving he can win one of them is a big deal. But so far, there hasn't been evidence that they're going to go for one of those. And I picked those 4 because there's more diversity to them in many ways to their electorates that should, if he's going to resonate nationally, then he should do better in those 4.
That's what I'm hearing, Chuck, and that's exactly what I think is the question. And you know as well as I do that there's always this big question: can the insurgent take can he take the cities? Can he take the capital? Can he run the table enough to actually beat the front runner? And it's still Hillary Clinton. And how he does that, as you say, is going to be apparent in his willingness to put the money on TV and really try to win the big states. And if he doesn't, then he may be running as a protest and a highly successful one, but not one able to actually get the most delegates. This is so fascinating what's going on right now, and it's not something we've seen before at all. Well, we're going to go right back now to Chris Hayes, who's in Henderson, to give another sense of what's actually happening. And this is why I think we're doing better than we've ever done before, maybe better than anyone else, showing what democracy looks like in a caucus, how caucuses can be a bit difficult to get into, but here he is, Chris.
All right, Chris. So this is a group that has just gone through the fairly complicated process, breaking up into groups, counting, and then apportioning delegates. I have with me Donna D. You are a volunteer. You're caucusing for Hillary, but you're also helping sort of manage things here.
We're caucusing for the Democratic Party, and of course, as you get into the process, then you choose your candidate and stand in line, and it's very grassroots. We count.
So tell me what just happened over here. There were people holding up pieces of paper. Was that the delegate apportioning?
That is for the count, so that we know how to apportion the delegates. And it's a very complicated system where, if I tried to explain it, you'd cross your eyes. It is certain percentages allow you to have certain numbers of delegates. There were 8 delegates. Right. So that's how they apportion it.
A little history here, right? In 2008, Hillary Clinton actually won the caucus. She had 51%. Barack Obama came out of the state with more delegates in the final delegate count. That's because of those. Yeah. And let me also give you a little history. I was here in 2008 at a place called Rancho High School in Vegas. It was such a disaster that I actually had to get on the phone and call the head of the Democratic Party in Nevada and tell him he has to send someone because 2 people were about to get into a fist fight because it was so complicated. It was the first time they were running a caucus like this. This is much smoother, although there have been some complications. How would you grade this compared to 08?
Okay, this is an improvement, and it's a little more organized. There's work to be done. This is only the 3rd caucus we've done. We never had a primary, but we had the caucuses that were pretty willy-nilly, and they never really counted much for anything. This got really serious in 2008 when they started caucusing here, and it's a great grassroots experience. However, if I had a preference, I'd go to a primary.
All right, Donna, thank you very much. I want to bring over here Sam. Sam is caucus. We're by the way, as people are walking by on the way out of this caucus saying that they agree with the urging a primary. Sam, you live here in Henderson?
I do.
And you're here caucusing for Bernie Sanders?
I am.
Have you ever caucused before?
No, this is my first time. I didn't live in Nevada last in 2008.
So what was your impression of I know that you guys had a little disagreement about whether you're going to have candidate speeches down there. The general process, what's your sort of takeaway?
I thought it was a complete mess, to tell you the truth. 3 days ago, I started getting calls from the Nevada Democratic Party to become a precinct chair. And really, I think they probably should have had that figured out more than 3 days before the 1st and the West caucus. And so our precinct chair was signing people up still, and we sat for about 45 minutes doing nothing, and somebody came up and said, don't start caucusing yet. And then he showed up and said, we're not going to do the discussion aspect of this.
So now you're just to get a sense of some of the frustration, people shaking their head and nodding in agreement with their frustration with the process. I mean, keep in mind, there's a lot of smiling faces and there's a lot of democracy in work and people are worked up. But again, this has now been 2 or 3 or 4 hours of people's day. And like I've been saying all day, right, this is not, Iowa has this thing about the Iowa caucuses, has been doing it for decades and decades and decades. Everyone comes and vets them. Every candidate goes into every living room of every person who lives in the state of Iowa. That's not the way it is here, right? So the trade-off that Iowa voters have is they have a very labor-intensive process, but they get a ton of attention. Here in Nevada, they've moved this up in the calendar. This is the 2nd time in a contested primary they're doing it. They have all of the labor-intensive process. They got this very logistically complicated undertaking, but they don't get the same level of candidate attention. And I think some of that's a little bit of some of the frustration of the voters here in Henderson, Chris.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. This is great stuff. When we come back, new data from Steve Kornacki back at the 30 Rock about what people are saying as they go into these caucuses. It's a bit interesting, let's put it that way. Our coverage continues after this. back with our coverage on this beautiful day on the Nevada caucuses out here in Las Vegas on the Strip, in fact. And NBC can now report the race is now too close to call. Not too early to call, too close. So this looks like a close one. And we're starting to see the first returns on the bottom of your screen right now. Right now, let's go to Steve Kornacki with new data from our entrance polling. Steve.
Yeah, Chris, well, we'll start with, we got real results. As you say, they're starting to come in now, almost, 10% of the state. And you see the numbers here of Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton basically tied. The numbers underneath, to remind everybody, what you're seeing there are county delegates. That's how we're going to sort of count this up. That's what the percentages are based on. This is not one of these elections where everybody goes and casts a ballot and we know how everybody voted. These are the county delegates. There's going to be a total of about 12,000 of them that are up for grabs today across the state. So currently, that is the count you're seeing. Where these results are coming in from, we told you at the top of the show, there's really only 2 population centers in the state, one around Las Vegas in Clark County, the other up around Reno and Washoe County, and these numbers are coming from both of those places right now. So you're getting them from the population centers. We'll see how as this progresses. Now, we do have some other interesting stuff from the entrance poll we can take you through quickly, just about ideology. Here's a trend we're starting to see. This is the 3rd contest on the Democratic side so far. We can call this a trend now between Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. You ask people in this entrance poll or the exit polls there, you ask them, do you consider yourself very liberal or somewhat liberal? Do you consider yourself one of those two things? And you can see 8 years ago, these were the numbers. Barely over half in Iowa, 56 in New Hampshire, 45 in Nevada. Look at the numbers we're seeing this year, 8 years later. Iowa jumped from 54 to 68. New Hampshire jumped from 56 to 68. Look at the jump we're seeing in Nevada today, from 45% to nearly 70% calling themselves liberal. So the last 8 years of American politics, so much attention on the Republican Party becoming more conservative. We are seeing a Democratic Party that's emerging from the Barack Obama presidency much more liberal than it entered the Obama presidency. In terms of how those voters are breaking down quickly, we can show you in Nevada right now among very liberal voters, Sanders leading. Among somewhat liberal voters, Sanders with a 12-point lead over Hillary Clinton. Her sort of bulwark right now ideologically in Nevada, those who call themselves moderates, she's leading by 18 points there right now. Moderates looks like just about, little under maybe 30% of the electorate in Nevada, Chris.
So what percentage now are very liberal right now?
I think the number right now is 32% we're seeing in the entrance poll. 32% in Nevada calling themselves very liberal, 37% calling themselves somewhat liberal, for the combined total of 69.
It's very hard to distinguish, isn't it? I mean, just as off the cuff and try to say what percent. I mean, you might say the very liberal suggests Bernie. You might make that hunch, take that hunch. You might say that moderate means Hillary. You might say that. But what do you do with the somewhat liberal? How do you break that apart?
Well, I think the key there, the key there, Chris, is that second word. It's liberal. It's a word that was off limits. It's a word that was taboo in so many ways in American politics for all those years. The fact that people, whatever qualifier you put on it, vary somewhat, moderately, the fact that now a significantly larger number of people within the Democratic Party are willing to attach any form of the label liberal to themselves, as opposed to where we were 8 years ago, I think tells you something big picture about the trajectory of the party.
Yeah, it's funny because, well, it's ironic because everybody calls themselves a progressive now. Progressives all over the place, from a guy who's formerly a Democratic socialist to a person who says on some occasions, I'm a moderate, Hillary Clinton, both of them saying the progressive. It's getting to be pretty promiscuous, that word, I would say, the word progressive. Anyway, thank you, Steve. Sure. Let's go now more from John Ralston, our expert in Nevada on politics. What do you make of these numbers on ideology, John? Do they give you an indication of who's winning this thing?
Well, you can see from those early numbers it's going to be very, very close, Chris. But I see those very liberal numbers the same way that you do. If Hillary Clinton manages to hold on here, and I think that's a big if right now, Chris, based on those entrance polling numbers, look at what happened in those 6 casino sites where she won by overwhelming margins in each of them. If this is a close race, then we are going to go back to the phone call that Harry Reid made to the head of the culinary union, which was standing on the sidelines, not doing anything. Suddenly, hundreds of workers show up after Harry Reid prodded them. A lot of people are going to think on behalf of Hillary Clinton to do that. But again, we only have about 14% of the precincts in now. And I hear that Bernie Sanders is doing pretty well in northern and rural Nevada, which is what people expected to happen. I'm trying to find out where these numbers are coming from, Chris. I haven't gotten that information yet. But this is going to be very, very close.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how we crosswalk phrases like very liberal too. Does that mean you want $15 a minimum wage? Does somewhat liberal mean $12? I'm serious about this because people are very open here about their position on these cutting-edge issues that Bernie has been raising effectively, and Hillary has not been so successful.
No, I
staking
think that's
out a
right.
set of issues that people can say, I'm for Hillary. Gender, of course, experience. They were there long before this debate began. But since this debate began months ago, Bernie has staked out positions on issues, and Hillary has not as effectively, certainly not as effectively.
Remember, Chris,
John?
people have tried to use this analogy, which I don't think is apples to apples, of Sanders and Obama in 08. But what Sanders is doing that Obama did in 08 is expanding the electorate beyond what you're talking about. The people who were already hardened Clinton supporters because she's a woman, because they believe it's her time, because they love her, because they think she has all this experience, whatever she did as Secretary of State or in the Senate, those people were there. But what Sanders has done that I think the Clinton campaign did not expect is what Obama did in 08, which is expand the electorate, bring in these new people, which at least in the early going in Nevada appears to be what's happening. If the turnout turns out to be much larger than people expected, north of 70 or 75,000 voters, that's going to be very good news for Bernie Sanders.
Great news. Thanks, John. Hang on there. We're going to go right now to Howard Fineman, who's in the South. He's down in South Carolina right now to give us a sense. As I said, NBC is calling this too close to call. For a while there, it was too early to call. Now we have a lot of information, but it's apparently too close to call, to put it literally. On the East Coast, the first in the South Republican primary is underway now in South Carolina. As we've been saying, the polls are closing there in less than 4 hours. They've still got a lot of voting to do. Joining me right now from Columbia, South Carolina, is the Huffington Post, Howard Fineman. And also in New York, Elise Jordan. She's an MSNBC political analyst and former senior policy advisor to Rand Paul's presidential campaign. Howard, first, I've been waiting to hear from you. You're hearing what we're hearing. I don't know what more reporting you have, but give us it all. What are we looking at here out here in the Vegas Strip and the big casino event of the week?
All right, this is a national conversation, and the conversation here among Republicans in South Carolina reflects what John Ralston was saying. You've got a situation where the Democratic establishment in Nevada, Harry Reid namely, was trying to help Hillary Clinton. You got the same thing going on here where the Republican establishment, such as it is desperately trying to help Marco Rubio become the real challenger to Donald Trump. You got Nikki Haley, the very popular governor here, who endorsed Marco Rubio. They had big set pieces with all of the established figures in Republican politics here backing Marco Rubio, and I think Marco Rubio's gotten a bump out of that. I think the turnout is heavy. Donald Trump, I attended a Donald Trump rally last night down in Charleston. There were more than 2,000 people there. He still draws the big crowds. He's still got a lot of enthusiasm behind him. The question here, I think, is going to be not whether Donald Trump wins, because I think he probably will. It's the question of how close anyone else comes to him, and whether that's Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz is the question. Right now, I would say the talk here, the feel here, is Marco Rubio gaining inch by inch because of those endorsements. But you get in both places, in both parties, Chris, you have what's left of the establishment desperately trying to hang on against two insurgents from the outside. Bernie Sanders with his big government promises, and Donald Trump with his sort of authoritarian strongman, I'm going to fix everything businessman appeal. That's the commonality between the two states and the two events today. But in South Carolina, the question is who will get how close to Donald Trump, and whether it's really a real three-way race or whether Donald Trump wins big enough to set himself up for that big March 1st event that you were just discussing.
Let me ask you about the Cruz campaign. It has shown in Iowa and the caucuses there, and now in South Carolina, some of the earmarks of a nasty campaign, a very hard-edged campaign, making charges and spreading rumors through push polling and things like that, techniques we're very familiar with, to try to pick up a few votes around the edges. What do you have to say about that kind of campaigning and its effectiveness in these last hours?
Well, what I'm hearing, and from talking to people all over the state, Chris, and I've been all over the state, Ted Cruz's supporters are very fiercely for him. but most of them are evangelical Christians. But evangelical Christians here in South Carolina are different from Iowa. In Iowa, they were formed as an army, kind of like Oliver Cromwell's, new model army. Here, everybody's an evangelical Christian, and it's not as much of a political statement. They have broader interests. They're interested in trade. They're interested in immigration. They're interested in Obamacare. They're interested in business. Those are the things that Donald Trump is appealing to them on. He's been able to break out of his base. Ted Cruz has not yet anywhere really been able to break out of his base. They are his force, but they're also his prison. And I haven't seen him be able to break out of that. Now, when he does those tricks on the campaign trail, the photoshopping of the handshake with Marco Rubio, his people who are already for him love that. They live in the Ted Cruz reality. Rest of voters take a look at Ted Cruz and they recoil a little bit, as indeed some recoil from Donald Trump. Donald Trump's nasty language on the stage, Donald Trump's harsh attacks work with a lot of people. They don't work with everybody, but they work better for Donald Trump than they do for Ted Cruz.
Well, thank you, Howard. We'll be back to you later today. Let me go to Elise Jordan, who's one of our analysts up in New York right now. Elise, I think this libertarian vote, which that you're familiar with, having been formerly associated with Rand Paul, I'm looking at this last-minute robocall that's come out from the Cruz campaign, identifying Donald Trump with the LGBT cause, making him pro-gay rights and all that, pro-same-sex marriage. What will that do down there?
That is not a message that plays well with libertarian votes, with trying to win over libertarian voters to your cause. They're, more for getting government out of the business of marriage, period. I think that you look at what's happening today in South Carolina, Cruz and Trump just haven't done anything this week to really help themselves win over new converts. And you look at Rubio, I do think that he's probably going to eke out second. He might even get into the 20s. He's had a great week with Nikki Haley's endorsement. And all Rubio needs to do is just either getting second would be great for him, or just make third place and keep getting third place until March 15th rolls around. And there's some great winner-take-all states that he can probably sweep.
Well, that leaves the fourth place position open, which would be between Jeb Bush, of course, if he's still in the fight, and, of course, John Kasich, who got a good bounce coming in second in New Hampshire. Is that still something that anybody's going to watch, or is Jeb basically out of this if he can't get at least third? Is fourth good enough for Jeb?
I don't think so, and I think if he gets fourth, he likely will be out. Maybe he hangs in until Tuesday and goes out to Nevada, but after that, we're seeing the last of his campaign. And John Kasich, he saw some momentum in New Hampshire. We'll see if he can hold out till March 8th in Michigan, but I think it's going to be too little too late. And how can that, really propel him forward in this race that there really is such a heated competition?
Elise, thank you so much for joining us from New York. We'll be back. And when we come back, Tom Brokaw is going to join us and talk about the key races in Nevada and South Carolina, both on today. It's a doubleheader, politically, a Democratic race, a Republican race, a caucus, a primary. We've got everything here today. The big news at this hour is that there's a 21% chance, or actually there's 21% of the votes been counted here in Nevada already in the caucuses. And the race here between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton is too close to call. Back with more after this. We're back from the Las Vegas Strip. It's really an amazing weather out here today, and everybody's happy and wandering around. They're basically non-political, except for the people we're going to show you right now. They're going into these caucuses. They've been there now, and they're doing an amazing Democratic job. The race in Nevada out here is too close to call, according to NBC, with about 24% of the vote in, and it's 52% for Clinton, 48% for Sanders, but stay tuned. Let's go upstairs now, where we've been before, to MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff. He says at the caucus here in New York, at the New York Hotel and Casino, is getting hot. Jacob, you're in the action.
Chris, what you're looking at right now is the undecided group. This gentleman here is undecided. It's currently being pitched by a representative from the Hillary Clinton campaign. This gentleman's from the Bernie Sanders campaign, and he's deciding. They're asking us to take a step back from this group right now.
Whatever you choose to go with, congratulations.
Whatever you choose to go with, congratulations. They've just shook this gentleman's hand. We may see democracy in action right here if this man decides to go with a particular preference group. They're lobbying it to go to Bernie Sanders on one side. Hillary's folks are going to this side. We're watching this happen in real time. Here he goes over up the middle. The right is Hillary. The left is Bernie. He's still thinking about it. He's still thinking about it. Still talking to the representatives from the campaigns. 299 people here. 45 means your group is viable, over 15%. Undecideds are not viable. This group in the middle is still thinking about it right now, Chris. And as you can see, the groups are lobbying hard. It's a big decision. The next leader of the free world. And we're talking about proportional delegates here, so where these folks go really might matter. They're taking their sweet time, Chris.
You know, this is like getting picked on for basketball games. You know, are you getting picked for this team or that team? This is pretty animated stuff going on here.
It's unbelievable, and I think, just looking at the numbers, the Sanders group at this location looks smaller than the Hillary Clinton group, because on the left side of the room, and I don't know if you can see our high bird's eye view as well, but the closest to you in the bird's eye view is the Bernie Sanders group. Across the room on this side is the Hillary group. These guys right now are talking to the chair of the caucus. The undecided voters are talking to the chair of the caucus. Again, she is from Nebraska, an official from the state party there. They are lobbying with everything they can to get these 1, 2, 3, 4 voters that are remaining here as undecided over to their side. I don't know if you know what's the most efficient process for democracy.
Can you characterize the people going? Are the women, mainly older women, going with Hillary? Is there a pattern like that?
It's a very diverse group on both sides, to be totally honest with you, Chris. And we can just take a look. I don't know if you want to take a look at the groups right now, but if you look across, these are not monolithic groups in any sense of the word. Everybody is here, and they're like I said, they're all together, but they are not certainly one group, one way or the other. And again, undecideds, still talking. They're smiling. They're clearly enjoying this. But Chris, I just want to point out one thing. This is, in my opinion, quite a messy way to do this. In Iowa, even though the caucuses are a messy situation there as well, the counting looks much more efficient. A lot of these people were expecting to be out of here by 1:15. They're protected by work from getting into trouble, many of them. But this has gone over quite a ways local time.
Okay, I want to bring in Tom Brokaw, who's sitting to my right here. He's out here on the strip with me. And what do you make of this, Tom? This is pretty kinetic. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm looking at some of these early, what they call the internals. Yeah. This is a liberal working class turnout based on everything that we're hearing from the people who are there. There's some very ominous signs for Hillary Clinton here, Chris. Does she have the right experience? 91% said yes, as opposed to 8 for Sanders. Can win in November. 77% said yes, as opposed to 16 for Sanders. But cares about people like me. She gets creamed by Sanders, 75 to 23%. Honest and trustworthy, 84% for Sanders, 11% for Hillary Clinton.
And these are Democrats.
These are Democrats, liberal working class Democrats. It's going to be the core of the party. And Nevada is not as exotic as it seems. People come here from all over, frankly, and reflect a lot of different cultures. They're working class people, and they're mostly worried about what's happening to them economically. The big issues for them are economy and jobs and income equality. Terrorism is in single digits for them. So these are ominous signs for Hillary Clinton, it seems to me. If you look at this now, these are early numbers. It's just one state, but she's already stumbled over these barricades before in Iowa and now in New Hampshire. What happens on Super Tuesday, when it happens all at once across the country, it's going to be very hard to control. In every political season, there's momentum. Donald Trump is certainly the beneficiary of that this year. And it looks like Bernie Sanders, they don't think he can win, but he represents what they care about.
You know, I was wondering, the great thing about here is you see everybody working.
Right.
You know what the jobs are.
Right.
We know a croupier is a guy that's working at the tables. We know a waitress is working the tables. We know the concierge tells you where to go for a show or how to find some directions. We see what they do for a living, and we know intuitively they don't make a lot of money.
Well, and the other thing is the culinary union decided not to back a candidate this time, which was hugely important.
What's that mean, that Hillary couldn't pull him?
Couldn't pull him across the line. I mean, that's a very important working class union, especially here in Nevada, but also what it reflects, these are the kinds of people that you grow up next door to. And they're the ones who are being most hurt by this economy. They think she can win. They'd rather have Sanders as the person they want to pick.
The old American argument, and it's not only a conservative argument, is if you work hard, you'll make it in this country. If you put in the hours, you'll move up from poor to working class to middle class to upper middle class, and you have won the American dream. If you just work your butt off. Is that going? Is there a sense now we need government change? We need a policy change, and who runs the country?
Well, it's more than policy change. We really have a dramatic shift in how the economy works. Manufacturing has become so high-tech. I went out to Southern Ohio a couple of years ago to take a look at what they're doing at the community college. There's a bright young man who'd been an electrician in a residential area. His job went down when the recession hit. He went to a community college. He was able to work with the new computer systems. There were two 55-year-old guys there, and they were sweating bullets. They were forklift operators. They couldn't adapt to the new computer demands and the digital demand of the modern workplace. That's a tough one to fix, Chris.
And they don't want to go from that forklift to a keyboard.
No, well, they can't. I mean, it's not that they can't. It was just, my heart went out to them. They were just sweating it. It was not something they'd grown up with. It was not something that they'd gotten used to. And I don't know what happens to that part of the working class. These are the people I grew up with, you know. And
do you think that, let's talk about the Democratic Party, because that's what we're covering out here. The Democratic Party has been led for 2 presidencies now by certainly a moderate Bill Clinton. You know, third way, the whole thing. Work hard and play by the rules, what I was just saying. He believed very much in that American character building of making a little more money, saving a lot, giving to your children, sacrificing, and then you get ahead to a higher station in this country. Barack Obama came in with a strong, aggressive, progressive agenda, but then he came back to a more moderate approach, right? Is that moderation after 16 years caused the Democrats to say, enough of this? We're going to try something more dramatic.
Well, I think it's less than the broad characterization that it is. Give me some specific programs. I'm a big believer, for example, in community colleges. I'm a big believer in job training, and the money ought to go there.
That's Bernie.
That's right, but he also goes too far the other way. I mean, how are you going to? You're not going to have single-payer health in this country. It's just not going to happen politically, quite honestly. And he has no foreign policy. He has no national security
policy. These arguments. You know what people say along here? The issue of the enormous amount of money people are borrowing for college. Middle class people, upper middle class, being stuck with $100,000, $200,000. They don't think they'll ever be able to get out from under that.
Well, one of the things that's happening, though, is that they're borrowing money for college for programs that are not going to get them a job. You know, that what we need to do is to have tight focus on the kind of training and how they get them. Okay, you're going to get a loan. How are you going to spend it? We're not just going to give you $200,000 so you can go off and be a humanities major, by the way. You're going to have to get a job.
Science.
Or political science. But you and I mean, one of my friends who was a commencement speaker had a woman come up to him and said, look, I'm $100,000 in debt. And he said, what are you? Well, I'm in Renaissance literature. And he looked at her and he thought, I should tell her to be a pole dancer. But I decided not to do that.
Better not do that. Tom Brokaw, thank you for that, because I do think we're going to be talking about philosophy. Unusually, a lot of time on that topic in the next couple of weeks as the Bernie Sanders Feel the Burn campaign continues. Let's go to Doug Sobroff. In the real world, No, Jacob. Why do I keep calling Doug? Jacob, thank you for going back in there with us. Take us in.
All right, Chris, so this, what seems to be the beginning of the end of quite an epic process here, is now underway. All unaligned voters have moved over. The 3 remaining women went to the Hillary Clinton side, and then the gentleman over there, the rather tall man in the chef's shirt, I don't know if you can see him with an American flag sticking out of his lapel, has gone over to the Bernie Sanders side. Now, this is rowdy and this is wild, but one thing I want to remind everybody of, Chris, is that at this location in particular, only 34 precinct-level delegates are going to be awarded. And on the Strip in general, only 161 precinct-level delegates are going to be awarded. Now, Steve Kornacki was pointing out earlier that in the Las Vegas area, Clark County, that's about 8,000 delegates of the state's overall 12,000. So it gives you a little bit of a perspective, Chris. Once they finally get to the final number here of delegates, it's only going to be 34 divided up however many ways the candidates have split out of 12,000 total for the state.
You know, I wonder can you tell what the people are feeling now? You know, most of the time when you vote, it's kind of a very civilized thing. You go into a voting booth alone. There'll be a few people outside with signs that might pester you a little bit, but there's laws against doing too much of that. You go in very privately, go to your booth, you check your selections, and you get a little sticker to put on your lapel maybe, or your cap. And you walk out feeling very satisfied that you participated in elections and you've done your duty and you've expressed yourself. What are these people going to come out of there thinking and feeling? This is quite an operation we're watching here.
there's certainly a lot of pride in this room, but to your point, Chris, there's also a fair amount, at least from the people that I've tried to talk to, because I try to talk to as many folks as I can, that not explicitly they've said this, but to me it seems like some folks don't like the fact that they're doing this in public. There are people that I went up to and I wanted to talk to that didn't necessarily want to talk to me about who they were voting for on camera. Again, in America, we have the expectation of the Australian ballot, the secret ballot, where we're able to walk into a place, write something down, or check off a box on a piece of paper, put it in there, and then go home. But with this caucus process that I think maybe 10 or more states and other U.S. territories use, at least the way that the Democrats do it in Iowa and Nevada, it is a very public process. And look at right here, right now, everybody's holding up their preference cards in the air. This is anything but secret, Chris.
Yeah. And we're going to see the same thing in Colorado and Minnesota and in Vermont and in Colorado, Minnesota on Super Tuesday. The same process.
Yeah, that's right.
That you've been covering. So you'll have more of these escapades to cover, these demonstrations of political militants. Because it shows a lot that people are willing to. My parents, I don't think they told each other how they voted. In fact, I know that as a fact. And because my mom voted for Kennedy, and never told my father. So.
That's amazing to hear, Chris. Yeah, they certainly would not have that luxury during the Democratic caucus process, at least how they do it in Iowa and Nevada.
Jacob, you're the best. Thanks so much for coming in. We'll be back to you again as we get more results out there. Much more from our entrance poll coming up, by the way, with Steve Kornacki, who also does a great job when we get them coming in, we get them there, we watch the whole thing. There's a third of the vote now counted already statewide here in Nevada. And it's Clinton 52-48, but don't think it's over. Back more after this. Live back from Las Vegas here on the Strip. Breaking news now to report, and here it is. NBC News is now projecting that Hillary Clinton has a slight lead in this race, but the race is too close to call. Slight lead, but it's too close to call. Let's go back to Steve Kornacki at 30 Rock with more information on the Nevada race.
Yeah, well,
Steve,
Chris,
break this out if you can.
Yeah, no, Chris, we've been seeing this for a little while in these numbers now, so there's a reason why this projection is moving slightly, and it has to do with the area right around Las Vegas, Clark County. Now, I want to show you the results there in a minute, but first, keep something in mind. All these numbers you're seeing here, 52%, 48%, the number next to that, those are the county delegates that are at stake today. Now, remember, there's going to be a total of about 12,000 and change that are distributed across the state today, but more than 70% of those delegates are coming out of this one county, Clark County. Now, take a look inside here and see the results. Hillary Clinton right now, this is shaping up currently as basically her best county in the state. She has a 10-point lead over Bernie Sanders. Clark County was also a big county for Hillary Clinton in 2008 when she narrowly won the state. She won it by about the same margin she's leading Bernie Sanders by right now. Now, the key for the Clinton campaign and the key to saying that Hillary Clinton has a slight advantage right now is that about 70% of the vote is still out in Clark County. So what you're seeing at the moment is Hillary Clinton is hitting the same number here that she hit 8 years ago. She is hitting the number that she needs to hit to win Nevada. If she continues to hit that number as the rest of the county comes in, she is in great shape in this state. For Bernie Sanders to overcome what he's up against right now, basically what you'd need to have is that the precincts that have reported right now, the 30% that are in this county, would basically have to be unrepresentative. Now, that could be the case, but at the moment, Hillary Clinton is hitting the target in the county that was key to her 8 years ago to win this state. And there's one other element of this as well, and Mark Murray just mentioned this on Twitter, and I'll pass this along to our viewers. We talk about there's also the national convention delegates that come out of Nevada. And 8 years ago, while Hillary Clinton won the state on caucus day, Barack Obama actually beat her by one national convention delegate. Well, because of a sort of a quirk in the process here, the congressional district around Las Vegas, around where Hillary Clinton's doing well right now, there's an opportunity for the candidate who wins there to basically pick up an extra delegate. It's very complicated in the math, but that Hillary Clinton, if she continues to lead like we're seeing right now, she'd be in great position to pick up that extra delegate. So again, that other thing she had go wrong for her 8 years ago, losing the national convention delegate count, if she's winning in Las Vegas, she's looking good on that front too, Chris.
Steve, let's put some meat on the bones right now. We had Harry Reid out here. We know Harry Reid has tremendous political pull out here, especially with the established politicians, the union leaders, people like that. Was he able to open up opportunities for the union workers out here in the casinos, like right next to me, right here, New York, which has been our host here? Has that been a factor, getting 3 hours for the employees to get out and vote so that nobody felt any pressure from work or bosses not to go vote? Was there an effort to really get out the vote here of the union people, even though they didn't officially endorse the culinary workers, that they were encouraged to get out the vote by their bosses, by their leaders?
Yeah, again,
by their shop, their business managers, people like that.
The one thing that we can't see in these numbers, we can see the county. This is the county-wide. The county is not just Las Vegas. We're talking about 75% almost of the population for the entire state coming out of here. So you're also talking about suburbs here. You're talking about people outside of Las Vegas. So it's unclear if the numbers that we're seeing are coming from what you're talking about, if they're coming from the casinos, if they're coming from the workers, if they're coming from union workers, or if they are coming from outside of Las Vegas. What we can say, though, is we're starting to get a significant chunk of the vote in. Again, it's 30% at last check. It may be up since I started talking. And with 30% in, Hillary Clinton's hitting that number she hit 8 years ago.
Okay, Steve, hang in there. I want to go right now to Jacob Soboroff, who has a hard count from right here, his caucus right here in this building, New York Casino and Hotel. Go ahead, Jacob.
Okay, so Chris, what you're watching right now is all these people walking out because we have a final count. What they're doing is handing their preference cards. The final numbers are 196 people for Hillary Clinton, 97 for Bernie Sanders. And what that means is they divide up the delegates. As I told you, there are 34 total, 23 for Clinton, 11 for Sanders. One thing I want to point out as these people all walk out of the room and hand in their preference cards, which is what she's shaking right here, is that we started the event with 299 people. My crude math, not very good in school, 196 plus 97 is not 299, so the process did take long enough that some folks had to go home. But again, the top line from here is Hillary Clinton with 23 delegates, 11 for Sanders, out of the 12,000 total being awarded in this state today.
Okay, again, great reporting there from Jacob. Let me go right back to John Ralston. John Ralston, you're the expert out here. Tell us what that means. 23 to 11, is that the right ratio if you're a Hillary supporter to win this thing overall?
Well, yeah, Chris, that's what she was hoping to do there. And again, I don't know the raw turnout, but and it's not a huge number of delegates. But let me read you the results. I have them here, Chris, from the other casino sites if you want to hear those. You heard 23 to 11 for Hillary at New York, 28-12 for Hillary at Caesars Palace, 25-11 from Harrah's, 15-9 from the Wynn, 13-6 from the Paris, and 5-3, one of the smaller ones, at the Rio. So she essentially won every single one of those casino sites decisively. That's going to matter. Clark County is going to matter. Steve pointed this out very well. She's hitting double digits in her lead in Clark County, Chris. The way you win a race in Nevada is you come out of Clark County with a big lead, and then you can afford to take losses in the rest of the state, which is only 28% of the population, depending on the turnout. So if she can hold her own in Washoe County, which is where Reno is, and hold her own in rural Nevada, the other 15 counties, she will win this race. Again, the swing county in Nevada, Chris, people forget about this, is Washoe County, which is very evenly divided among Republicans and Democrats. That's where this race is going to be decided, I think.
Let me ask you about the power of the unions in these casinos as they vote. They caucus right in the casinos along the Strip. We're on it right now. How much clout to the union leaders, the people who get elected at the local level, the ones who are the shop stewards, people like that? How much clout do they have when they walk into a room in which everybody knows how you're voting? I mean, everybody in this place will know everybody else and how they're voting. They probably look to their best friends. How you voting? How you voting? Everybody's going to see that. So is there influence from above or from a peer group pressure, from a union pressure that wouldn't be the case when you go into a secret ballot?
You know, I've been talking about that too, Chris. I think you're right on that. It's not just with the culinary union inside these casinos. And 2 months ago, even a month ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, they weren't going to do anything. Then the leadership got this phone call from Harry Reid. So the leadership tells the shop stewards, get your people out. We're going to get permission from the hotels. But it's not just the culinary where that's going on, Chris. You have the Service Employees Union. You have many other unions in Nevada that went with Hillary Clinton. And as you say, it's much different. If you walk walk into a voting booth, you don't care what the leadership has said you should do. You can just push the button for whoever you want. But then you have other union folks there, maybe some folks that you think might tattle to the leadership about how you're voting in a caucus. There's a lot more peer pressure, as you say. And so if Hillary Clinton pulls this out, I think there's two things that we'll be looking at. One is that phone call that Harry Reid made to the culinary union. Second, the fact that it's a caucus, and that while you can divide and conquer with unions rank and file in a primary, much more difficult to do in a caucus for Bernie Sanders when your peers, as you say, are standing right there with you.
Well, this is going to be the next hour or two. We're going to find out what happened here. Boy, this is a close one right now. As NBC's reporting, it's too close to call, but there's some indication that Hillary's doing pretty good. Maybe not enough, good enough. Anyway, much more to come on both of the Democratic caucuses here in Nevada, both sides. In Nevada here at the Republican. We're going to talk also about the Republican primary in South Carolina, which is happening today. Stay with MSNBC, the place for politics in both states. Welcome back to MSNBC's live coverage of the Nevada Democratic caucuses out here. The race is still too close to call, believe it or not, too close to call, but Hillary Clinton has a slight lead. Put that together. Let's get more numbers down from Steve Kornacki, who's back at 30 Rock.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at where things stand. Again, we're close to half of all of the precincts in across the state right now. And again, Hillary Clinton, you say a slight lead. What this breaks down to, you look at those numbers there, basically a 200 county delegate advantage. There are over 12,000 county delegates that are up for grabs here. These are not just, people going and checking off boxes. It's a Democratic caucus. It's complicated. A little more than 12,000 are up for grabs. She is now up by about 200 with nearly half the vote in. The key to all this, we've been saying, it's this county right here. It's Clark County. It's Las Vegas. This is Hillary Clinton's best county 8 years ago. It's why she was able to win the state 8 years ago. And right now, it's why she is ahead. Clark County, now we're getting some even more significant numbers, about 40% in Clark County, and Hillary Clinton continuing to lead by 10 points. That's the same margin she had 8 years ago. That's the margin she needs today. That's the margin she's getting. As more vote comes in Clark, if it stays 55-45, and it's been stable for a while there, if it stays 55-45, Sanders is not going to be able to make up that statewide gap we're showing. He has got to reverse this number in Clark. There just isn't enough population. There aren't enough delegates throughout the rest of the state. We can show you a couple other places real quick. Right now, this is the other major population center. This is Washoe County. You're talking about Reno here. Bernie Sanders is leading Hillary Clinton there. But again, you see it's about a 54 county delegate advantage. Also, this was where Barack Obama basically did the best in the state, Elko County back in 2008. And Sanders has an advantage there, not the advantage that Barack Obama had. So really, we said Florida, Florida, Florida in 2000, and it's Nevada caucus. We're going to say Clark, 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 Chris.
Let me ask you about one simple question. You would think rural areas are more conservative. Why has Bernie got strength out in the outlying areas beyond Clark County and the rest of Nevada?
Well, we saw this in the first two states. We saw this in New Hampshire. We saw this in Iowa. We certainly saw it in New Hampshire, though, and it's true in his native Vermont as well. Lower income rural white voters he's done very well with. He's done very well with them in Vermont, where his political base is. He did very well with them in New Hampshire. He flipped a lot of areas in New Hampshire where lower income blue collar white voters had been with Hillary Clinton against Barack Obama in 2008. The reason Bernie Sanders had that landslide in New Hampshire, he flipped those voters over and he won them. And you talk about those sorts of areas in Nevada, rural, lower income, often non-college educated white voters, Bernie Sanders could be doing very well with them today, Chris.
Steve Kornacki, it's great. Thanks. We'll be back to you again and again. Let me go now to Chuck Todd. Chuck, what's your analysis of what you're seeing so far here? We don't have a result. We don't have a projection of a winner, but we've got information that Hillary's got a bit of a lead.
Well, we do, and it's a reminder. Everything looks almost identical to 2008, okay? And that's good news for Hillary Clinton. And I think it's a reminder, don't forget, the guy who's the campaign manager overall for Hillary Clinton, Robbie Mook, is the guy who ran Nevada in 2008. And as David Plouffe will tell you, the operative they were always the most fearful of going up against when it was Obama Clinton was when Robbie Mook was running a state. So if you come in at a tie, you had to say operationally the Clinton team had a slight advantage. And if you think about it, what did our entrance poll tell us? Essentially, it was even Steven coming in. Organizationally, you always gave a little pinky on the scale to Clinton. They knew this state well. They'd already done it. The guy who runs the national campaign ran the state before. And that, to me, is what's playing out here. You know, Bernie was able to essentially forge a tie in total turnout, but operationally and on the ground, the Clinton advantage is showing, and you see it. It's ever so slight. It could end up flipping. You know, anything's possible, but her lead looks, even while small, it looks durable.
You know, Chuck, you and I know that every election, whether it's a primary or a caucus or a national election, has two results. One is who wins, who loses, of course, but also what message gets sent. And I'm still in the opinion that Bernie has a message and Hillary doesn't. And if she can win these caucuses because of family relationships going way back, her and her husband, and all the loyalties that come from that, and just simple organizational politics, if she can win without a message, imagine how well she'd do if she had one. It still seems to be a difference. Bernie has something to say, Hillary doesn't.
Well, I think, look, and we talked about this before, one thing we didn't talk about is Hillary Clinton over the last 3 or 4 days, and beginning, you saw it a little bit at the town hall, she's getting comfortable with this, with running against him. I don't know how else to put it, but it's sort of, you get to the point where you get past the frustration that you're in a primary. You know, you get past it, and I think Bill Clinton showed frustration a couple weeks ago when he realized, oh my God, we got to go through this again. And I thought I've seen a flip of the switch in Hillary Clinton where this is going to be hard, and she's sort of sucked it up and said, okay, I'm ready to do what I have to do. I'm ready to slog through this. And she's getting more comfortable developing this. While they don't have a message as far as 10-point plans that people are touching, this fighter message, I'm a fighter, it's a very believable message with her. Even if you don't like Hillary Clinton, you can't ever say she doesn't fight, right? She is not somebody that you ever knock down. So it is, to me, the beginnings of something for her to run on.
Yeah, I think Cruz has a fighter image, too. He's not lovable, and there's no joy in the campaign, but there's certainly a consistent ideology there. But, you know, I look at the two candidates who have grabbed the attention of this country, and certainly our media, the free media, having the two have had a clear message and joy. I will use that old New Testament word, joy.
Well, it's a Hubert
and
Humphrey,
that
the
sense
joy
of
of
happiness
politics.
that, but yeah, he was fighting. Yeah, I know he said it. I'm not sure he had it, but he said it. and I think these two candidates have joy. People walk out of a Bernie event happy. They go into a Bernie event happy. And when they even think of it, they go into a Trump event. They're laughing. Maybe they're not happy, but they're laughing the whole time. I don't see any laughter coming out of Cruz, even from his roommate in college who won't say a good word about the guy, and none of his colleagues in the Senate. But Hillary Clinton, I don't see joy. You say we see fighter. When are we going to see joy? Because without that, why should anybody else be happy if she's not?
Well, it's tough when you're not winning. And if she strings together a few victories...
That's pretty good thinking there. That's a good counterpunch.
Yeah, and you string together a few victories. That's why this win is so important to her, okay? Because, again, if Bernie couldn't win under the... You know, this is why, and the Sanders people got so upset at me when I said, hey, I think Nevada's kind of a must-win for them, more so than Clinton, because... This was to prove that you could win in a diverse state. This was the easiest shot he had to prove he could win in a diverse state. Not to say it wasn't going to be easy. I'm not saying, but it was a doable and winnable early, a way to send a message.
Caucus.
Well, that's right.
It's a caucus.
And caucuses are he is built for a caucus. Particularly, you and I've talked about that. Having the passion, new voter registrations. Those are some of the ingredients you need to do well in caucuses. And that's why. And we only have two of them.
Just to go ahead here, just to move ahead the next 10 days. It's only 10 days from now. Let's start thinking about Super Tuesday. 11 contests. Only 2 of them are caucuses. So the advantage goes to.
That's right. Goes to her. And you have 2 New England states, and that's it, Massachusetts and Vermont. So, look, there are places that he's going to win. But to me, it's one thing to get 45% of the delegates and be able to help write some rules at the DNC convention. If you want to win 51% of the delegates, he's going to have to not just win in diverse states, but he's got to win big states. He's got to go win some big primaries. And to me, and I go back looking at the road ahead, Texas, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, these are big states. Yes, they're not the best demographic states for him, but these are big states. He's got to win something to show that he can win the nomination, not just be competitive. We already know he's competitive. He's crossed that bar. Now it goes from can you win, and that's the next test.
Yeah, Chuck, you're best. Thanks so much, sir. When we're back, with me right now is University of Texas professor and MSNBC contributor Victoria DeFrancesca, and NBC's Casey Hunt. She's right with me. She covers the Sanders campaign. I'm going to let you guys both talk. You've been waiting so nicely sitting here, Victoria. So, Victoria, let's talk. We've been talking a lot about the Hispanic community, and it's finally having some oomph in this campaign. Here it is.
Yes, it took a while. There was a lag, right? So we saw a population boom here in Nevada in the 1990s, and we didn't see that reflected in the polls. In 2008 is when we really saw that Latino population boom. But what I think is going to be most...
By the way, your background is so interesting. Tell me when you're back.
I've got good food in my background, right?
Okay.
So I'm half Mexican, Italian, and Jewish. So I can talk about immigration politics on all angles. And immigration, namely, is one of the prime topics here in Nevada because you have a lot of mixed families in Nevada. You have kids who are citizens, so watch out in 15 years, but their parents or their sisters or their brothers may not be able to vote. So you have these mixed families, so you're seeing a lot of political mobilization.
How's that work? And you have a family of 5 or 7 people, like our family growing up, and 2 get to vote because they were born here, right?
Yeah.
3. Does everybody get in on that?
Absolutely.
Is there like a family meeting?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I mean, Chris, your survival is on the line because you may not have your mom when you come home from work. You don't know, was there an ICE raid and she was taking? So the importance of voting, the importance of immigration for Nevada Latinos is so important because it's about your family. We know from statistical work that the majority of Latinos here in Nevada in particular either have someone in their family who's undocumented, and I'm talking about eligible voters, or who have a friend or an acquaintance or a coworker. It hits home, Chris.
This is not as partisan as it will sound. But does everybody in the community have the idea that what happened here is we had a really good compromise, comprehensive bill that Ted Kennedy and John McCain agreed on? There was a really good bipartisan bill. A dozen Republicans, the Democratic majority. It came to the House, and Boehner, the Speaker of the House then, wouldn't let it come to a vote for fear, in fact, knowing it would pass. That there is someone who stopped this whole thing. It wasn't like everybody's guilty, like one of those liberals always say, we're all guilty somehow of an assassination. No, there's one person and one party that stopped the chance for real comprehensive reform.
And Hillary Clinton has made an excellent case of that. But what the other thing she has done is she's blaming Bernie. When you go out to her stump speeches, you hear her saying, hey, I voted for this immigration bill.
That was an earlier bill, right?
Yes.
It was an earlier bill.
Bernie Sanders didn't. So immigration's important in the
big bill I'm talking about is the one that got through the Senate with a lot of Republican support and could have easily passed the House if they had a vote in the House, and we wouldn't be talking about this endlessly. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any more thoughts about the? Let me ask you about how your community, speaking broadly, shakes out between the young voices of those who are aspiring and really want to hear big change, and those who feel a loyalty to the Clinton sort of moderation, if you will, but effectiveness.
We're seeing that generational divide. And one thing I'm going to be very curious about when we get the exit polling is what is that age breakdown? We're seeing, just anecdotally, the kids are with Bernie, the parents and the grandparents are with Hillary. And you're seeing a lot of communication within the family saying, hey, I want to vote. I want you to vote for Bernie, Ma. He's better for us. And the mom says, no, I'm with La Hillary, is what they call it, La Hillary. So I don't know who's going to convince who. We're not going to know until the exit results.
You know, in the old world, it's all aspiring, and I'm with Hope. I was with Obama. I love Hope. In the end, though, either one of these people has to go into a Congress. Could well be 50, 60 Republicans in the Senate. There could well be a Republican speaker, probably Paul Ryan, who you have to go duking it out with from the first moment you're president. You have to duke it out with these people who don't want you to succeed with any of this agenda.
And Chris, let me point out really quickly, we're not just seeing the voice of Latinos grow at the ballot box. Nevada is on the verge of electing the first Latina senator in Catherine Cortez Masto. We're also on the verge of seeing Nevada elect its first Latino representative to Congress. Nevada's never sent a Latino to Congress. Nevada was originally part of Mexico. It's been Latino for a long time. So aside from the voting booth, we need to keep our eye on Congress with Nevada.
You're a very persuasive person.
That's, hey, I'm telling you.
Just kidding. I'm not condescending. No, you've waited a long time sitting in that chair for an hour and a half to be able to let us know what you think. Casey, is that all right? Does that square with your reporting?
Well, in fairness,
the ethnic stuff, the picking together, the age group stuff, the generational dispute. Do you see that when you talk to people?
For sure. I mean, you know, for Bernie Sanders supporters, I mean, I can't even tell you the number of times I've been to events across the country, Nevada and otherwise, where you have the kid in the family arguing at the event with his parents saying, hey, Mom, Dad, come on, you got to get with Bernie, and Mom and Dad are saying, I don't know yet. I'm not totally convinced. So yeah, of course, the age gap is real, and I think the question that we're seeing answered for the first time here is whether or not age is going to trump some of these other factors that have so often driven our Democratic results. And it's starting to look like, in many ways, the African-American community here in Nevada is going overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton, and that could actually be pretty definitive. I'm interested to see where this Latino margin ultimately comes out. Is the Sanders campaign, even if he falls short here in Nevada, still going to be able to argue, hey, we did make inroads in this community. We can, given time, given campaigning, given putting our candidate in front of these voters, we can convince Latinos, people of color, that there's something there.
Let me talk about something I've noticed among all vulnerable groups. Jewish groups, all kinds of people that feel vulnerable historically to the majority, right? They tend to go with people they've trusted over time. So it's always affected. You can't be a more effective Democratic senator candidate if your father or mother had that position before, because then they know you. Oh, we know these people. Bernie Sanders is a new product to most people. How does that work? How is that working out? So most people never heard his name till 3-4 months ago.
But they like what he says, and they like his passion. They've been calling him El Viejito here in Nevada, which means it's a term of endearment, kind of like the grandfather. So he's been picking up this emotional connection with the community. But at the same time, I think Hillary just has such a strong edge. Hillary is usually seen as not very emotional, a little bit cold, but she's done a fabulous job in the Latino community of connecting with them.
I have to interrupt right now. Yep. We have an announcement to make right now. The reason we're here. Here it is. Projected winner. NBC calls Hillary Clinton the winner of the Democratic caucuses in Nevada today, picking up 43 delegates. It's done. She's won this race. What a tightly contested race it has been all day today. And we're going to go to John Ralston right now to give us the best information you get from the best guy we have out here. John, Hillary Clinton has won, according to NBC's projection, 43 delegates. It's done.
It's done, and you know what, Chris? It was what I told you earlier. I just saw the numbers coming in from Reno, where Bernie really needed to crush her. He has a very slim lead in Washoe County, which is where Reno is. He needed to do much better than that up there to win this race, as Steve Kornacki has been pointing out. Because she has that big lead in Clark County, where you have the huge population, very difficult to overcome that. And so I also want to remind Steve Kornacki, if he's listening, what I said when he put me on the spot on his program. He asked me what I thought. I said Hillary -5. That might end up being pretty close.
Let me go. Hold on there, John. Let's go to Steve Kornacki right now. Look at it. We're looking at Clark County, where we are right now in the Las Vegas Strip. Las Vegas itself's here in Clark County, and up there in Reno, the biggest little cities up there. Both strong points for Hillary Clinton, apparently.
Yeah, and I was going to give John Ralston credit for that, but I mean, yeah, you can see the overall result here now. Over 300 county delegates. That's the lead for Hillary Clinton with 60% in. Let's just go through. We've been saying Clark is the key to this, and she is maintaining that 10-point lead. That has been steady. That's been solid. It's what she got 8 years ago. It's what she needed this year. And this also calls into question, by the way. We said earlier in the show we were getting indications in the entrance poll that Bernie Sanders had defeated Hillary Clinton among Latino voters, that he had scored a win with Latino voters. That's still what the entrance poll is telling us. I have to say, though, when you start to look at these results, this is where the Latino population, this is the heart of the Latino population in Nevada, is in Clark County. Hillary Clinton won the Latino vote, the entrance poll said 8 years ago, by nearly 40 points. If she was losing the Latino vote, I'm not sure we'd be seeing the result we're seeing out of Clark, and specifically, and then Nate Cohn, who's the numbers guy at the New York Times, has been pointing this out on Twitter as well. He's pointing to some individual precincts as well, where he thinks there'd be a very different result if Bernie Sanders was actually winning the Latino vote. So that's something that might be called into question by the result. The other thing we could just quickly show you in these results, these counties, John was just mentioning this. If you go up here, Washoe County, if you're looking at Reno, Bernie Sanders, especially as we got these results from Las Vegas, he needed a big number here. Barack Obama in 2008, when he almost won Nevada, he beat Hillary Clinton by 9 points. Bernie Sanders right now only up 6 there. How about this? Elko, the only other real population center up in the sort of northern part of the state. Sanders up by about 10 there right now. Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton here by more than 30 points 8 years ago. So he's not getting the kinds of margins Sanders isn't that he needed out of the northern part of the state. And I think the big surprise here, Hillary Clinton, she needed to win by about 10 in Clark County, and it looks like she's on pace to do that, Chris.
How do you square this? It's a tough call right now. How do you square what we're getting as a hard call now by NBC that Hillary Clinton has won the Nevada caucuses today with the numbers in the polling, which showed a trajectory headed towards Sanders?
Yeah, no, like I said, I mean, and the reason when those entrance poll numbers started coming in a couple hours ago, and we were looking at entrance poll numbers that said Bernie Sanders is winning with white voters and Bernie Sanders is winning initially, it said by 11 points. And again, those are early numbers, but the 11-point lead among Latinos coupled with leading among white voters, you looked at it and you said, this looks like it's going to be a pretty good afternoon for Bernie Sanders. But when you start looking at these returns, and especially Clark County, again, 75% of the state in terms of population, we're talking about in that one county, and that is where the Latino vote is really centered in the state. Those findings, those results do not square necessarily with those entrance poll numbers, Chris.
Okay, hang in there, Steve Kornacki. You're doing great. Let me go to Chuck Todd. Chuck, it seems to me that if Hillary Clinton wins out here, as NBC is now projecting she will in the Iowa caucus, as she goes into next week, next Saturday, a week from now, which is only 3 days before Super Tuesday, she could win there, and then she could do incredibly well. This is a real turning of events, perhaps, here in Nevada.
I think it's a big turning point, and it's sort of, it's going to be, you can call it a sigh of relief, whatever you want to call it. This is a big deal, her narrowly eking out a win, no matter what the size of it is, because again, as we've been talking to you before, with Sanders, this was his best shot to sort of start puncturing this balloon that he can't win in diverse states. On one hand, he's making a ton of progress. He's made this very close. By the way, with the entrance polls, it is possible that the entrance polls are right and Clinton wins. Don't forget, in a caucus, it's not your total turnout. It's where do you have the distribution based on delegates. Sanders could have more people showing up to a caucus site that's worth fewer delegates than Hillary Clinton does at another caucus site or whatever. And that's why entrance polls are so fraught with peril, I guess is what I would call them, than exit polls, which are much more accurate. It's just a single vote. That's why they're much more accurate and an easier way to project who is out there. So that's why there could be, both things could be correct, is my point on this. Obviously, she did much better in Hispanics than the caucus, than the entrance poll shows, but that's how both things could be right. But let's throw that aside. This win is hugely important to her because she can now run the score. Now Sanders still has to go win someplace with a diverse electorate in a primary situation to sort of puncture this air of inevitability. And I think now the air of inevitability is back to Clinton.
Again, NBC has projected that Hillary Clinton has won the Iowa caucuses today with 43 delegates. This is a big development. Let me go back to Chuck on that. There it is, 52% to 48%. Chuck, I want to talk to you about this. If you look forward to the Tuesday, next Saturday, a week from now, you've got an interesting development. You've got South Carolina with a large minority population, large African-American population, tremendous rooted connection to Bill Clinton and to Hillary Clinton. You got Jim Clyburn down there out just the other day saying he's all for the Clintons. Whatever problems they had between them 8 years ago, they're gone. Bill Clinton's popular in the South. I think among African Americans, that's my hunch. This looks like a good thing for them. And then they go into this incredible run of states: Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Virginia, and Vermont. Except for Vermont and the two caucus states, Minnesota and Colorado, Hillary Clinton has all the name brand, but she still misses one thing. Bernie's got a message.
That's right.
Feel the burn. A lot of excitement that is not surrounding the Clinton campaign. There is an excitement there, like there is. What happens when one party, what would you rather have, like in football? Would you rather have the Mo or the football? You know, the Clintons have the football, but I think the Mo is still with the Bernie people.
Yes, but I think today is sort of a setback. You can't look at it in any other way. You had to keep building. And so if he's going to puncture this balloon, and look, Super Tuesday, it's not, when you judge who wins or who loses Super Tuesday, it's about who's going to win the most delegates. And on paper, this is an opportunity for Hillary Clinton to build a durable lead in delegates. Set aside the superdelegates a minute. Among earned delegates via primaries and caucuses. And this is where I think Sanders in the next 10 days, look, he's got the financial resources to compete with her in any state he wants. He has got to win a day and win a night now. This is going to be, that's how you get momentum going forward. These have been one-state contests. We have one more one-state day for Hillary Clinton. That's likely next Saturday. But look, there's good news for Sanders. He gets to play an expectations game. Nobody expects him to win. Nobody expects him to come within single digits. So if he could somehow get to single digits, he could declare some sense of momentum, some sense of victory. But Super Tuesday for him, I think the pressure's on him. He can't just come close in delegates. He's got to win the day in delegates. If he's going to be the nominee, you got to win the day in delegates on the big nights. And March 1st is a big night, and March 15th is going to be a big night. That's his next challenge. And yes, today's a setback, and now he's got to figure out how to get the momentum back.
Yeah, he's going. We're all going national too in our coverage because there's going to be so many states.
That's
12
right.
states now in the next week and the next 10 days. 12 states altogether, counting South Carolina. Chuck, thank you so much. Chuck Todd back in Washington. Let's go. We're going now to Jim Clyburn, of course, the real hero of this place, we could argue. Congressman Clyburn, thank you. And I think, as you reported to us yesterday, told us you were asked by the Clinton people to get yourself involved in what's happening out here in Nevada, and maybe you made the difference out here.
Well, I think we did. We talked to a lot of people across the country during this week when we were told that things were firming up in Secretary Clinton's favor, and we were asked to do what we can to help try to close the deal. And so on yesterday, we did what we thought we needed to do to help close that deal. And of course, I'm very pleased with what is going on out there. And I really think that next Saturday, the gateway to Super Tuesday, and it will be followed 2 weeks later with another Super Delegate Day. I think by the time we get to the end of March, we can then begin to plan on how to bring this party together, how to get those people who are feeling the burn to really coalesce around Hillary Clinton, because I am convinced she's going to be the nominee of our party, and we need to start figuring on what we need to do to be victorious in November. So I'm very pleased with today, and I think she'll be pleased with next Saturday as well.
Congressman Clyburn, how did you get back with the Clintons? How did you overcome the bad blood of 2008? How did it happen?
Well, you know, Bill Clinton and I have been talking. In fact, a long time ago, I'll never forget, we were at a funeral in Cleveland not long after all of this happened. We chatted that day. He's been to quite a few of our caucuses, and I talk to him every time I'm in his company. And, you know, he was protecting his spouse. He was supporting her. I have a spouse that I've had for 54 years now. I support her. She supports me even when I don't deserve it. So you don't have any qualms about people protecting their spouse. So I never had any hard feelings toward Bill Clinton, and I was looking forward to the day when I could get the whole world to understand that. And I found that day on yesterday, and I think that we're all going to go forward together as one happy family.
Okay, give me a projection. Give me a projection. A week from now in South Carolina, at the end of your count, what's it going to look like for Hillary Clinton in South Carolina, your state?
Well, I think she'll win comfortably here. I would hate to give any real numbers, but I think that she'll win the lion's share of the votes here. I wouldn't want to call it anything other than a comfortable win. She'll be fine.
And would you think Bill Clinton would be a good campaigner for down there? Would you recommend he come into the state? He's been very careful about how he campaigns now. He doesn't do he does hardly any national interviews. I'd love to have him on Hardball any moment or any format here on MSNBC, but Bill Clinton's not doing much, public discussions of his wife or this campaign. Do you think he'd be a good campaigner for Hillary down in South Carolina this week?
I think so. I would love to have Bill Clinton come here. I would love for him to be here when we could probably do a couple of events together. I want, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So no matter what I say to you today, a picture of the two of us together here in South Carolina, I think would do wonders for our constituents and for our party.
You have just delivered a wonderful invitation to the former president to hold you in public embrace. And I'm hoping to see that happen, too. That'd be because we all like a good story. Thank you very much, U.S. Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. Well, Hillary Clinton's the projected winner, as we've been saying right now. Thank you, sir. Hillary Clinton won Nevada today. Wow, what a big win for her, and it was pretty dicey there. It seemed, as we reported it looked like anything could happen out here. Anything could happen. When we come back, Steve Kornacki will show us how she won. We'll be right back. Our coverage of the Nevada caucuses continues. It's been a great day out here in the weather, and for the Clintons, a very good day. Well, there you see it. Hillary Clinton is the projected winner of the Nevada caucuses out here today. Let's come back right now to Steve Kornacki to find out how she put the victory together. Steve, it's great to figure this out. Go for it. How did she win?
Yeah, well, let's just take you through the best groups for Hillary Clinton, some of the best groups for Bernie Sanders, give you a sense of what voters were saying. So these were the best sort of numbers she got when you started looking at these different groups, different ways of breaking down the electorate. Ideologically, it was moderates. 57% of moderates said they came out and supported her. She didn't do nearly as well among liberals. Among specific issues, the people who said health care was their top issue compared to terrorism or compared to the economy, she did best among people who said health care was their top issue. How about sort of character qualities, traits as a candidate? Well, right experience, 91% who said that was the most important thing to them went with her over Sanders. And can you win in November? People who said that was their priority, being electable. Again, 3 out of 4 basically were with her. We can quickly show you for Sanders, again, among those who call themselves very liberal, that was one of his best groups, ideologically honest and trustworthy. People who said that was the top character trait they were looking for. 84% of them chose Bernie Sanders, 16% with Hillary Clinton there. Income inequality, that was the top issue that attracted his supporters. And political independence. Independents could come, they could participate. About 20%, it looks like, of the caucus participants today were independents. They came, and we've seen this in the other states, they were overwhelmingly for Sanders today.
You know, the great thing about that, Steve, is it conforms to what I think. You know, what most of us think. I mean, is there any surprise in that to you? The moderates would be for Hillary. The people that want experience would be for Hillary. The people who were worrying about having a good candidate to contest what we know will be the onslaught of negativity from the Republican side come this summer and fall. We know it's going to be nasty. Who can withstand that, Hillary or Bernie? And then you look at what makes Bernie very likable. Those very liberal. No surprise there. The honest factor, maybe that's a comment on Hillary, but it's certainly also a comment on him. Income inequality, it's what you hear from all his supporters. It all fits with what we talk about. I'm glad to see that.
Well, I always think this is sort of a chicken and the egg thing, right? Because it's the issues that the candidates are stressing. So are they voters who say, hey, income inequality is my top issue, and therefore I'm for Sanders? Or are they for Sanders, and because he always talks about income inequality, they tell you that income inequality is their top issue?
Yeah, but the honest one is interesting because there's you know, Hillary's got that problem. It's no doubt driven by Fox and other sources to keep pounding her over and over again about email and Benghazi and constantly go after even Whitewater, back to that, and Bill Clinton's past behavior. She never has a let up on that, and she has to sort of counter that, and then they say, oh, by the way, she's not honest.
No, and
I think that is
that's one too
out there.
And that's one too with, as you say, that's something that's been dogging both Clintons for 20 plus years now, and it's something that if she does emerge from the primaries with the nomination, obviously that's a general election vulnerability too.
Yeah, well, anyway, anything surprising on the list today? I went through it. It all clicks with my thinking and observation. Steve, I think this is great reporting for people to actually hear what voters are saying as they come out, and voters are saying who voted, who actually took the time to come here to places like this right here, show up, participate in a rather complicated process compared to just voting, and then to say that they are thinking about the things we argue about on TV all the time. They matter to them, and they reflect their voting pattern. I think it's great to see it actually confirmed and checked, if you will. We have to keep checking it.
Yeah, no, not any surprises for me here either, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve Kornacki. A great day for you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
We're now looking at a live picture of the Hillary Clinton headquarters tonight. We're expecting her to make her victory speech shortly. Former Nevada Governor Bob Miller is the most recent Democratic governor of the state and the longest-serving governor in the state's history. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Some people pronounce it longest-serving, but...
Well, anyway, tell us about, were you betting on this result or not? Hillary over Bernie in a close one.
I thought that she'd win, and I thought that it had become closer. But you know, I've known the Clintons for a long time. I ran President Clinton's campaign in Nevada in '92. I have a strong, high opinion of them, and they've been very well organized here. So it was a matter of organization versus a level of recent enthusiasm.
Well, did they prevent the leak in the dike? Because I got a sense there was a crossing of lines. That Bernie was coming up, Bernie Sanders, Hillary, we use first names now, Hillary Clinton was coming down, and they were about to cross here on Saturday. So it looks like the Clintons put together something to stop that trend.
Well, we in Nevada like the fact that we're an early caucus state because we think we're more reflective of the national population. And this was, in fact, a test of that. You can look at the early states in Iowa and New Hampshire. They're not demographically or geographically the same as Nevada. We think we're an indication of where things might go. And so for her, it was very important, as it would be for him as well. But I
you
think
got about 30% minority here, broken between Hispanic and African American, and that's pretty much national. It looks like a national number.
Yeah, it's even more than that. It's 29% Hispanic and about a 9%.
Oh, population-wise, yeah. I'm talking voters.
Just the voters, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know to what degree those percentages went out and voted because our largest union, the Culinary Union, really didn't get an endorsement one way or the other. The at-large caucus sites, which might be reflective of that vote, all went to Hillary here.
What's wrong? Can't you guys find a way to have a primary out here? First of all, I think primaries are more democratic, and I spend most of my time, a lot of it on the air, pounding away at the Republicans for all these obstacles they put up to voting. You got to have a government-issued ID card. We're going to cut down the number of Sundays where African Americans have historically gone to church and then gone to vote together. Anything to screw that makes it a minority vote. And here you have a very, I'm not saying onerous, but it does require a larger commitment by far than sometime during a day going over and voting and coming home.
Well, ironically, my son Ross was the Secretary of State for 8 years. He called me this morning and said, we ought to have primaries. And actually, that discussion that was had was largely defeated by Republican members of the state legislature.
They don't want to pay
financial
for it.
basis. Yeah.
They just don't want to have
that was the argument.
You know what? Democracy costs a few bucks. Governor, thank you very much. Let me go to Kristen Welker, who's at Hillary Clinton headquarters. Kristen, where is the candidate who won today?
Well, she's undoubtedly going to be on her way here, Chris, to deliver what is now a victory speech. I have been in contact with her campaign trying to get exact timing. No word on that yet, but I anticipate she'll be coming out soon, Chris. The crowd here, just to set the scene, erupted into cheers when the race was called for her. They erupted into chants of Hillary, Hillary. The reason is because there were a lot of concerns inside the Clinton camp that she was going to lose this state. And she has edged out Senator Sanders. It's a decisive victory. And the reason why it's significant, Chris, is because of what we've been talking about all afternoon. The fact that this is a larger, more diverse state with Latinos, African Americans voting in bigger numbers. And it underscores that Secretary Clinton does have a strong following in those voters. And it raises serious questions about Senator Sanders' viability with those groups. Now, he has been aggressively reaching out to African Americans ahead of South Carolina, but she has a big lead there. The other reason why this is significant, Chris, it restores the momentum that she lost in New Hampshire. It was a devastating loss. This brings her back on a somewhat equal, if not larger footing moving forward as they head to South Carolina and those all-important Super Tuesday states. Chris?
Well, let me push you on this. Where's Hillary Clinton been the last 6 hours?
Well, she's made a number of what we like to call off-the-record stops, meeting with union workers. The reason for that, Chris, is because more than 50% of union workers are Latino. They are critical here in Nevada, and they are a critical part of this victory. There is no doubt that they helped her push her over the edge here in this key state. Chris?
Did you know she was going to be here for the results before you knew the results? In other words, did she wait to hear that she had won before deciding to stay in the state?
No, her scheduled departure time is not for another hour or so. So she was always planning to be here during this time. But you're absolutely right. She is planning to travel to Texas later tonight. She's going to start campaigning there. I asked the campaign, I have been pressing them about that, about why they're leaving on this night. caucus night, and they said, we'll know the results by the time they're planning to leave. And in fact, it turns out they were right. It was a big gamble, though, because we all remember what happened in Iowa when the results were so close that she ultimately wound up leaving before she really knew the final outcome. That was the risk she was taking here again tonight. Chris?
Do you have a sense that the critical decisions were made by Harry Reid in really jazzing up, if you will, the culinary workers who hadn't formally endorsed Hillary Clinton but made sure they got out to vote, that the big casino operators and hotels here made sure that their employees, most of the Democrats, were given enough time to go out and vote in the caucuses, that all this came together in a way that if it hadn't come together, that Bernie might have picked off this state today?
Well, not only were those union workers given time, Chris, they were paid. So they were essentially on the clock when they were caucusing. That was critical for a lot of them. So I think you're absolutely right. This was to some extent orchestrated. Of course, Harry Reid hasn't come out and endorsed either candidate, but the thinking is behind the scenes that he is a Hillary Clinton supporter. And I do think he was encouraging those voting blocks that you just talked about to come out in big forces. And I can tell you, I went to 2 different caucus locations, Chris, and we saw a lot of Hillary buttons, and a lot of those folks who were wearing them were union workers. So that is a strategy that certainly paid off for Secretary Clinton this evening. Chris?
Yeah, we start to pick up on that thanks to Jacob Subaroff and the other reporting we got today here. Right up here in New York, the hotel and casino, we were seeing that there were a lot of Hillary people there. He's now shaking his head from behind the camera appreciatively. Thank you, Jacob, for that reporting. Anyway, thank you, Kristen Welker at the Clinton headquarters. I guess we'll get a speech soon from Hillary Clinton, the winner today in Nevada. We'll be taking Hillary Clinton's victory speech, I said, live when she gives the speech now, when she takes the stage. Our coverage of the Nevada caucuses and the South Carolina Republican primary, which has also been held today, continues after this. Clinton is the projected winner here in Nevada. The caucuses, boy, with this a big one. This is a barn burner out here. She was strong here in Las Vegas, right where we are right now on the Strip and surrounding Clark County, which includes Las Vegas. I'm joined right now by Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman, as well as her husband and predecessor, former Mayor Oscar Goodman. You know what I've been doing out here all day? I've been selling this place. I tell you, the weather is God-given. It's about high 60s, early 70s. It's been glistening weather all day. Yes. And by the way, I will say something that will drive your casino owners crazy. I like outside better than inside here. I love walking around here. It's like the old Atlantic City.
It's great, isn't it? It's like the boardwalk.
It's fun. It's promenade time. Yep. You get a lot of exercise. The weather's fabulous. It's dry.
Yes.
And then you go inside, you gamble. And
but
if
you're a big enough bettor, we can bring the table out for you.
Oh, really?
We
used to have the wet T-shirt contest. Used to be down here.
Oh, we've had a lot of things down
along
here,
the way
trust
here.
me.
Let me ask you, what's this do for your city to have all this hype?
We love it. You know that. We've been watching it, and we can't wait to have it end up here October 19th. That's where the final debate is. So
I was just talking to Tom Gallagher, a guy I went to school with, who's active out here.
You went to school with an awful lot of people. Couldn't you stay in school?
No, we Holy Cross guys get around. You know, the word gets around. Let me ask you about looking forward to that big debate, by the way.
It's going to be huge. The university's involved.
UNLV.
Yeah, the convention authority is involved, and we're going to be spending a lot of time promoting it.
We have 155,000 rooms. I mean, can you ask for more?
Let's pretend it's a Tyson type fight. You're gonna tout this. You got to be Mike Tyson. Okay, let's go. Who's the best two? The best two matchup for this city. If you had to pick the best Democrat, the best Republican to win, who the vote go head to head here?
After 54 years of marriage, we're finished. We are nonpartisan.
I'm asking who will bring the biggest gate here.
Not who we're voting for.
A gate. Okay. Is it Bernie versus Trump? The two outsiders.
Well, it has to be Trump. It should be Trump, and it actually should be Oscar Goodman, because I've been with the two of them, and if you ever saw two egos go at it, one better than the other, I got such a headache I can't tell you.
Okay, suppose it's the winner out here today, Hillary Clinton versus Trump. Who wins the matchup?
Between the two of them?
Yeah.
In the finals?
This is where we have a sports book out here. You're allowed to bet.
This is the final two you're talking about?
Yeah.
I
Pick
think,
a winner.
As far as Nevada's concerned, I see Hillary winning that in Nevada.
You mean people will sober up and take it seriously?
Well, you know, what Trump is, he's a little different candidate than most. You can't rely on what he says one day to what he's going to say the next day. And I like the guy myself. He's a very pleasant fella. It's worth a lot of laughs, but this is a serious job.
Who won the fight this week between the Pope and Trump?
I hate to say it.
Trump went back. He pulled back. He said, I'm not messing with the Pope.
I don't know, but the Pope messed with him, and I'm not sure that the Pope got the best of it at the end of the day.
Some people might have thought he was out of his lane, as they say.
Well, that's what they're saying. Exactly.
Out of your lane.
That's true.
Well, as I've been saying.
But I love the comment that the Vatican has a wall around it already. I thought
they also have Swiss guards, too, to protect the wall. Remember that?
Yes. So
anyway, I always
great.
have a simple answer to that protects me from offending anybody. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And you always get away with that one.
That's the truth.
Anyway, thank you.
It's always good to have you here.
Delightful. Oscar, Carolyn.
You are a big touter of Las Vegas, and we love you for it.
I do. I don't gamble, I don't drink, I don't chase women, but I love this atmosphere.
And I don't chase women.
Okay, I didn't say you did, buddy.
No, I have
don't
to
be
tell
defensive.
you, we love him to be here. We want him to have a permanent home right here.
Great. Well, I'm staying at Aria's, which is very nice.
That's
Much
nice
more
too.
when we come back from Las Vegas, these delightful Mr. and Mrs. of this city. And up at the top of the hour, I'm going to join Brian Williams and Rachel Maddow for another exciting. This is the second half of the doubleheader today. The coverage of the South Carolina Republican primary. We've gone from a caucus to a primary, a D event to an R event. It's all exciting today here on MSNBC. Polls close there just an hour from now. Yes, a big victory for Hillary Clinton out here in Nevada. The caucuses, the Democratic caucus is her way. Anyway, she's the projected winner in Nevada, a state Bernie Sanders needed to win to prove he could win in a big, diverse state. At least a diverse state with a lot of bigness to it. With me now is MSNBC, Jacob Soboroff, David Weigel of the Washington Post, and Michael Tomasik. Each of you take a minute. Michael's with the Daily Beast. Jacob, great work today, because I really think we've been covering politics from a distance. You've taken us very close. You're in there muscling your way through the people. And when you watch people who are undecided as they're being almost physically thrown around in there, being pulled at, that's something. That's some politics.
It's extraordinary to think about. Just on a super simple level, this is the way that they do things in Nevada and in Iowa and in Alaska and in Minnesota. It is the most bizarre, most messy process that you could possibly come up with if you tried to concoct that for an election cycle, but somehow it works. And it looks like, as we were just talking about before we went on the air, it's pretty darn close in terms of delegates. So, you know, I could see Bernie, even though he lost upstairs, coming out of here saying that he feels pretty good about the whole thing, Chris.
Yeah. David?
Well, I saw the limitations of Bernie Sanders' appeal in at least the caucus I covered. I was in the Wynn. It was a very narrow win for Hillary in 2008.
Wynn's one of the brand new big hotels here, casinos.
I was there, and she won it big this time, and she just had, I think, more convincing, more rugged spokespeople pulling undecideds over to her. I mean, the Bernie people were very passionate. It was the first time they'd been in politics.
So it's just like basketball, we have more muscle under the boards?
In this case, it was. Not every primary
pushing out everybody.
Yeah,
it's not like the best three-point shooters. It's can you muscle underneath?
Remember that Clinton.
There's always a basketball metaphor, I think.
Yeah. Remember that Sanders outspent Clinton on television 2-1 here. He had more organizers. He had, I think, more organizing offices. So even though Clinton was 25 points ahead 2 months ago, I thought Sanders was going to win. This morning I woke up thinking Sanders was probably going to win because he had the momentum and he had that money and he had all this stuff. She has dodged the most obvious point here, Chris, guys. She has dodged a huge bullet because imagine the press over the next week that she would have gotten if she'd lost here today.
And I think the reporters who were covering this, completely straight reporters, I've talked to some, with no point of view at all, thought it was moving to Bernie. David?
It was moving in that direction, and he did. He had more offices, he had more ads, there were people signing up. You did see more people signing up today who were for him. I just think maybe there's an underestimation of the resilience and the actual affection that voters have for her. She's not Jeb Bush, right? She's not just a candidate trying to paper over what people dislike about the direction of the country by using an old name. There is real affection people have for her, especially among Latinos.
Okay, I saw some of it among older women too. Some gender loyalty.
A lot of that.
Some gender loyalty in the group. Anyway, Jacob Soboroff. Is it Soboroff or Soboroff?
Soboroff, you got it, man. You got it right on.
Long O, Soboroff. Anyway, David Weigel of the Washington Post and Michael Tomasik of the Daily Beast. Coming up, part 2 of our doubleheader, and it is a baseball reference. I'll be joining Brian Williams and Rachel Maddow as our coverage of the Nevada caucuses and, of course, the results of the South Carolina primary for the Republicans continues after this.